When some people talk about a he, they mean Christ. When I talk about a he, then I really mean Biden. And when I say talk about, I really mean scream like I'm trapped beneath the ice. Scream like I woke up from a dream where the memory resurfaced that I voted for Obama twice. And then I saw the ballots flash before my eyes like the futures of a couple thousand Middle Eastern children that Obama wiped out via drone strike. Took them out early so we wouldn't have to wait until their wedding nights. And this had been the only man you lauded as a decent moral president till we decided W was fine. Decided he was not the man who whittled down our privacy or stuck us in Iraq for the rest of time. Now we see him in a different light. And all it took to whitewash the shame of his war crimes was snuggling Obama's wife. Never mind our soldiers. They should know a measly fucking thank you. A discount at Applebee's is fair trade for PTSD and a life of lost sleep while they're cuddling their trauma tight. Never mind a lost generation due to birth defects we buried in the soil. So Iraqi kids are born without a way to shut their eyes, are born with half their organs hanging out their sides. And we won't try to fix them, but we'll doctor up the image of the man who firebombed them in the night. Cause fuck it, man, the Raytheon stock is out of sight. Who's got the time to do more for the poor outside when it's warmer in here and there's Dom on ice? And meanwhile, half a mile down your drinking glass, there fizzles out a disappearing middle class who never seems to surface. They just keep on taking water, but they never get to drown cause they can't afford a service. So when I talk about a he, if I really mean Biden, then I'll scream it with a spite that lights a fire in my central nervous. Scream it like I'm one of many millions in your Perignon ice bucket, begging you for scraps, scratching at the surface. Who never seems to surface. Just keep on taking water, never get to drown, cause I can't afford a service. Begging you for scraps, scratching at the surface. 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 Scraps scratching at the surface. Begging you for scraps scratching at the surface. You were told to come alone. Joe said if you vote for him, he'll abdicate his throne as the father of the crime bill, soul of Jim Crow. Proud to live and vote as a Strom Thurmond clone. If he tried to kiss your daughter with a camera rolling, he'll try more than kissing her alone. Cozy up with Jill for a photo like a portrait of the Kissingers at home. You know I hate to kill the messenger, but if he's gotta go, we can FaceTime. Slit his throat while he stares into the phone. Like if you don't know, kitten, now you know. This is where austerity has gotten us. This is all that palpable excitement for a 20-year wait on forgiveness for your student loans. But a distraction's a distraction and it's time to see some action. So here's one last song for Joe before I try to keep his name out of the lyrics in my phone. Try to shift the focus to our senators and everyone in Congress who is all too happy to be hidden while we're wasted to the bone. It is not food insecure, it's starvation, and it lurks in almost half the country's homes. So if you plan to lay down, hold your nose and vote for Joe, have the guts to admit that you chose to submit and that you decided lending your support to a pedophile must be a step towards hope. That a vote for a man that spent his whole life implementing laws that dehumanized people of color is a vote against fascism. When you know damn well he's just a kinder, dumber face on the same white nationalism. So baby, throw away your scruples with the memories of your activism. Watch your weak resistance usher in a fucking cataclysm. Elect a bigot war pig and say you're gonna push him into pacifism.
That's some bootlicker Stockholm hostage liberal masochism. Bootlicker Stockholm hostage liberal masochism. Baby, that's some fucking bootlicker Stockholm hostage liberal masochism. God, that's some fucking bootlicker Stockholm hostage liberal masochism. That's some fucking.
Said, thank you, Obama, for life in the red. Thank you for dapping a pat on the head. Thank you for saving the banks as millions are drowning their debt. Thank you for all of the fluff and the nothing you said. Thank you for proving we eat up identity politics. All of your policy better forgotten. Just tell us what books you read. Tell us what record was top of your playlist, turning a wedding to Day of the Dead. What Quavo song went along on a heavy rotation, bombing Iraqis in bed? When they told you that 90% of your kills are civilian, what Jill Scott chorus was stuck in your head? What put you at rest after such a long day of convincing a nation it wasn't so deeply misled, that you weren't just Reagan with New Age media training, who fed on our hopes like his daily bread, who preyed on the weak, who was never unwilling to serve you a speech to remind you the middle class needed to bleed, and you helped us succeed if you learned to accept it, and better yet, learn how to laugh as they bled. Round of applause, laughter erupts, mic gets dropped, it's the end of his set. And the crowd once hungry are now on stunned from the glow of celebrity, which is impressive, especially since they're contented to sit and be civil while all of the donors are fed. They thin out the herd by 1 million a week if it gives the elite an illusion of peace, like they're out of the path of the future we reap, and they won't be debris in the wake of its tread. But the future is now, bathe in the sound, drown in the dread. Hide in the lounge, hire more guards at your gatehouse, hire someone to come build you a safe house under your shed. Hide with your diamonds and files, the files you keep to yourself and the files you keep for the feds. Hide in the dark for a while and watch all the value regress. Watch all the worth of your wealth on this earth melt down in a pool with the rest of the cess. The affluence left over after the worldly collapse of the affluent. After it's back to the dirt with the rights of their birth, privileged smirks and their unpaid taxes, #blast. This has all been a nightmare, capitalism was only a test. So you need not weep and you need not repeat what the liberals said. We will not be saved by people who say that the water is safe while they look in your face and they pantomime sips of lead. Honey, nobody's lifting us out of this mess. Honey, nobody's lifting us out of this mess.
Good morning, Sunday morning. Good morning, Sunday morning.
We're 40 Sunday mornings out from normal and the world is not the same. Said you waited for a warning, but the warning never came. Don't shine a light in my face.
Nancy gonna cut you a check too late. 2 years after your funeral's paid, 2 years after the grave, she'll be a little stronger for all of the dollars she saved. Watching you wake, watching you cling to your family slipping away. Watch her do nothing but pray. Watch her condemn the Republicans, take them to brunch and then shrug it away. Now watch us be outraged half of a day, then pick a new hero to to face our leaders and think they could beat them, playing the game they played since Pelosi had real human blood in her veins. They're all one and the same, sold off stocks and they all maintain that the risk was benign and the virus was tame. Flash forward in 40 Sunday mornings fade, 250,000 people in its wake, and the cruise ship sailed today. So motherfucker, don't shine a light in my face. Wait.
Good morning, Sunday morning. Good morning, Sunday morning.
Wait. We're 40 Sunday mornings out from normal and the world is not the same. Situated for a warning, but the warning never came. Don't shine a light in my face. Situated for a warning, but the warning never.
Her hands are bound behind her candidate, who found the perfect hill on which to lay it down for good. Who she might not agree with on apartheid or celebrating war crimes, but talks just like she could. He's got the IDF's back and the CIA's back like a Democrat should. Mr. Anti-Establishment didn't start the fire, but he's slipping on his hood. Her voice is grafted to a candidate who might not always speak for her, but what is she to say? Why bother harping on an issue that Americans won't listen to? It seems like such a waste. But what activism is saying they don't give a shit, but if I don't, why would they? So way to rob yourself of agency, then chain yourself to genocide and look the other way. I love to see a fellow running as a Democrat, taking stacks of money from a GOP super PAC, calling out corruption in the giant fucking country club he's clearly been accepted at, but wants to be the leader of. He knows which way the money runs, knows it paves a leader's path, and human rights for Palestine historically don't lead to that. So he will not address it, as he doesn't see a need for that. And welcome to the attitude our country's politicians have displayed toward Palestinians since back before they cracked the will of Arafat. And so the story goes forever after. We do not speak the P word here or recognize the Nakba. All you'll find are sea lions who volunteered as actors, barking like a manuscript from NAFTA. All you'll find are insulated sycophants intent on justifying why the slaughter done in Palestine is not a voting matter. Tell that to Shireen Abu Akleh. Tell that to the children growing up inside a city where the walls are made of shackles. Tell that to a mother who is burying her baby, how her son is not our problem because we'll never see his grave. He's just a topic we can mute, or we can scroll right past his face and all the videos of mourners being beaten at his wake. So stuff your poll on what the average voter sees as urgent. They don't get to know the half of what we use as our detergent when we launder all our ISIS cells, our cartels and insurgents. We do not elect the man behind the curtain. We elect the pull string diversion. We elect the lesser evil donors pre-selected best to do unto the Arabs as we did unto the Persians, and do unto the Muslims as instructed by the merchant who provided you with HIMARS that can vaporize a person. Back into the dust in which we all will find immersion. One arms dealer's Jenin is another dealer's Kherson. Both are just a mark that Lockheed Martin smells a purse on. And voters are the hollow thralls that Congress put a curse on to vote against their interests every 4 years till they die. And if you show them Palestine, cry better them than I. Though the curse of occupation's taken place within their mind, they will always love their prison, long as they are shown the sky. They will sing about their freedoms under Apple's watchful eye, as puppets dance and sing should you so pull their strings and wires. And they'll rally round the man who bears a torch and bears it high, and believe him when he tells them that he's here to stop the fire. We're cursed to love our prison and keep lifting up our liars. We are not behind the wheel, we're being crushed beneath the tires. And our blood is in the oil, and the plastic on the wipers, and our blood is on the hands of those who cranked inflation higher. And blood is on a vest where press can barely be deciphered, put there by a few Israeli snipers who were aiming at the center mass of truth about American desires. That you can sell us any story, we're a nation built of buyers,
And we love a good parade. It always makes us feel inspired, like who cares that those were Nazis? Gosh, they had the whitest smiles. So I wouldn't bank on sequels to the Nuremberg trials. If they happened now, they would be confidential, Pfizer style. Redacted paragraphs and empty vials, close to 80 years before they share their files. Well, luckily, your lesser evil logic lets you justify the nations we've defiled. Lesser evil logic lets you cast a vote for someone that you know is truly vile. Lesser evil logic sees another million bodies thrown upon its hoarder's pile, extending out for miles. So every line I've had to scrap, I've turned back into bile. So don't you touch that dial, lest the feds come swarm your door. Guess it isn't safe to say things like I don't support the war, or may Palestine know freedom from the Jordan to its shores, or I'd love to see our senators get trampled by the poor. Any pull-string dem will tell what they're allowed to stand up for, and how little things like Palestine are better off ignored. You can call it voter outreach for some desperate remoras when the shark from which they get their scraps starts polling on the floor. And the shark says those who live beneath a brutal occupation should be thankful for their freedoms and their rubble and their gore. And I swear it only makes those bottom feeders love him more. One in particular is beaming for her candidate who found the perfect hill on which to make his final stand. And she will not be deterred by all those pesky little war crimes, will not be deterred by his support for stolen land. He helps her come to terms with how to spin an occupation, and forgiving the oppressor is the democratic way. She says her voice is grafted to the candidate who speaks for her, and every time you pull her string, she's nothing new to say.
Anybody who's deliberately targeting civilians, they should be prosecuted and they should be jailed and the key should be thrown away. But, I don't see any proof of that.
He really does believe this, guys, to his soul.
No, Indy left. What is happening here?
To check out IndependentLeft.news.
The Indie News Network.
Indie Left News.
Oh, hey, Indie Left.
IndependentLeft.news. Great work.
Indie Left News.
The IndependentLeft.news.
Independent Left News.
Shout out to Independent Left News. Shout out.
Oh, what's up, Independent Left? Indie
Friend show.
Thank you, IndependentLeft.news.
The INN, Indy, you're wonderful.
I think Indy was onto something.
Independent News Network, Indie News.
Yeah. What's up, Indy, over on Rockfin?
Independent News Network, also known as INN.
Indie Left News.
I don't know if I would have made it through that 3 weeks without Indy, honestly.
No, I was just going to ask Indy.
A huge thank you and shout out to Indie Left.
No, you know what we're doing? We're world building, Indy.
Indie Left News.
You were doing the INN recruiting.
Indie News.
Independent Left News.
Shout out to Independent Left News.
Check out Independent Left News.
At Kennedy News.
I see Indy's in the chat. Hi, Indy. Okay, great.
Who are these people?
Who are these people?
This is the most election of our lifetime.
Oh, no. Oh, everybody. He's going to be insufferable.
You exist in the context of all in which you live and what came before you.
It's no. I know.
Bro, did you just fall out of a coconut tree? What happened?
I think we broke.
You think you just fell out of a coconut tree?
I think we broke the reef. He's very excited right now, and he shouldn't be.
President Trump incited an erection.
No, he. See, this is a family show, and it's not even. It's gonna get us pulled. We already got a strike. We got 2 strikes already from our friends. Yeah, so it's right to jail from our friends over at Al Jazeera. Thank you so much, folks. Yeah. So yeah, this is How Do We Miss That? Hi, everybody. I know you can see that in the corner. I'm Indy. That's Reef over there. We got a lot of crap to get to tonight. Anything happened today? Because nothing happened last week.
So.
Dude, okay. Like, we might have to change the day of the show, because every time I've got shit planned, like, the entire world melts down within a day of our show. So, last Saturday...
What can I say except you're welcome?
Yeah, thanks. Well, You know, he's the one person they haven't talked about yet for president. Holy shit. That's coming. That's the October surprise.
What's up with that? What's up with that?
All right, that's the October surprise. That's what's up with that. But well, you'll see that later. Surprise. Yes, the October surprise. They're going to pull the Rock out of. They're going to pull the Rock and Oprah. Oprah's going to endorse him, and here we go. It's going to be the Rock and Oprah 2024. All right, they're going to pull it out. It's Maui all the way. Lahaina, baby.
Don't pull out. We've already had enough old men pull out today, dude. Don't do that.
Well, again, family show.
We're fucked.
Come on, man.
We really are.
All right. So
derailed it enough.
So I don't know if everybody saw the required watching prior to this, but Whitney Webb put out an article this week about JD Vance. She, of course, has been talking about the technological panopticon that's been happening, run by Peter Thiel and David Sachs and the PayPal mafia and everything. And we're going to get to that later because we're going to wait for some other fam to be here. But I got some other stories I want to get to first. But yeah, Whitney was on with Jimmy. It was great. I think she broke his heart, and it was kind of glorious to see in a way that, look, we all love Jimmy, but when he asked the question, I think he already knew what the answer was. Like, is there anything good from any of these people? And she just crushed his spirit, which is like, no. It was, we love you, Whitney. You're the best.
What the fuck?
Yeah, it was. He was not too happy, and
who are these people?
He was definitely wondering that about them. So, so I got some stories from Indie Media Award honoree, Judd Legum. We haven't had him on in a while. So we've got one of his stories, and that is a story I see everybody getting wrong, and I made an audible. I was going to bring a different story tonight about Bernie, actually, believe it or not.
Gross. What's wrong with you?
It was a Common Dream story about Bernie. It's going to be in the quick hits, but I was like, you know what?
You know better.
Well, I threw it in a quick hits because I found a Judd Legum story because people are triggering me.
Quick hit you if you do that.
People are triggering me.
Quick, with a cross punch and everything. Quick.
Oh, come on. They're talking about Trump eliminating the taxes on tips and how that's going to be a good thing. But maybe not so fast. Then we're going to take a closer look at that. And then we're also going to do another update on UAW. We did one about a month ago about how there's a federal monitor that's been watching UAW, and they've been reporting that, hey, we've been asking for like documentation stuff, and they've been stonewalling us and giving us nothing, and they've been straight antagonistic, and we've been like trying to help them, and they're still just stonewalling us. Well, now they're starting to bully the rank and file workers that are from even reporting violations at some of these places, and that's a real problem. We're going to get to that.
Bully them? How would they bully them?
Well, we're gonna explain.
That's not right.
And then of course we're gonna talk about
why you bullying me,
censorship, and what's happening. David McBride. We're gonna talk about him a little bit. Fiorella and her channels that got zapped, and then our Al Jazeera thing, and we're gonna mention very briefly what happened with the ICJ ruling. Oh my God! Like so much news, so much stuff. And you know what? Everybody's distracted by the dog and pony show, and we're not going to be. We have real stuff to worry about. But, of course, our first story.
Fee, come on.
Yeah, Fee. Well, we're going to get to Fee later, too. But our first story is about election 2024.
Wow, incredible.
But it's from a censorship angle, and this is from an INN member, the Dissident. So this is an original article that was published this week before all the nonsense. And it's looking not just at the records of Trump and Biden, but it's really at the records of the Democrats and the Republicans on the issue of censorship and free speech, and where both of them are woefully awful and corrupt. All right. So Dissident starts saying that he recently published a piece entitled Election 2024 Blue Warmonger versus Red Warmonger, where I compared Trump and Biden's equally abysmal records on foreign policy, specifically on Ukraine and Palestine. This article will be a sequel, which will examine the candidates' equally abysmal records on free speech and their treatment of whistleblowers, dissident journalists, and activists. Something that's kind of near and dear to our hearts. So I appreciate our friend, the Dissident, for writing this. So let's start with Joe Biden. I will expand this to the Joe Biden administration. From prosecuting whistleblowers to creating a ministry of truth, Obama and Biden's unprecedented war on whistleblowers. The Barack Obama administration, where Biden served as vice president, used the Espionage Act to prosecute more whistleblowers than all other administrations combined before it. And
Thanks,
since,
Obama.
Yeah. These whistleblowers, documented by the American Prospect, are the following. So we have Shimei Leibowitz, who was an FBI contractor who leaked documents.
Shimei Leibowitz.
But he proved criminal activity done by the FBI. Documents were never published, but the Obama-Biden DOJ still prosecuted him under the Espionage Act. Then we had Thomas Drake, who was an NSA whistleblower who leaked information about illegal activities and mismanagement in the NSA to the press. We had Stephen Jinwoo Kim, very famously State Department, right, arms expert who leaked information from an intel report about North Korea responding to UN sanctions with a nuclear weapons test to journalist James Rosen. And then, most famously, Chelsea Manning, a U.S. intelligence analyst who leaked information to WikiLeaks, proving the U.S. committed war crimes in Iraq and Afghanistan. Manning, of course, was kept in solitary confinement for a year, which the UN Special Rapporteur for Torture called cruel, inhuman, degrading treatment. I believe that was at Leavenworth.
Come on, man.
No. And then we had Jeffrey Sterling, and we covered Jeffrey Sterling. When Jeffrey Sterling first got out of prison in 2021, in the summer of 2022, former CIA official who leaked information to the New York Times journalist James Risen, now of The Intercept, about Operation Merlin, a CIA operation that intentionally gave Iran bad design information for a nuclear weapon.
If we continue down this path, you'll find out that if you give information to The Intercept, you're going to go to jail.
Most likely. Then we had Kiriakou, of course.
Just saying.
Friend of the show, Kiriakou, CIA official who revealed the agency used torture during the War on Terror, right? And then James Hitzelberg, who a Navy linguist accused of printing classified documents. Now, that's not one that's as well known. And then, of course, also most famously, Edward Snowden, the NSA contractor stuck in Siberia, who revealed that the agency was illegally spying on Americans. Obama-Biden went so far as to ground the plane of the Bolivian president Evo Morales because they thought he could be harboring Snowden, potentially.
Yep.
All right. In all of these cases, the whistleblowers were not leaking information that would hurt the country, but were instead leaking information about corruption, human rights abuses, and unconstitutional activity that the American public has a right to know. This is considered by most to be a heroic and patriotic act. Still, the Obama and Biden White House used the Espionage Act to prosecute these whistleblowers to stop insiders from leaking information about government secrets and corruption. Of course they did, because it was their corruption. As president, Joe Biden has continued the war on whistleblowers. He took part in as vice president. The Biden DOJ sentenced, of course, our friend whistleblower Daniel Hale to 45 months in prison for leaking information about America's drone strike program, including the fact that they killed innocent civilians 90% of the time. And of course, until recently, Joe Biden continued the prosecution of journalist and publisher Julian Assange, started by the Trump administration. More on that later. Assange has thankfully been set free on a plea deal, but the deal creates a precedent that could now be used to prosecute more journalists for publishing classified information.
Very possibly.
Well, quite most definitely. But let's not also forget that Joe Biden created a Ministry of Truth headed by a Russiagate lunatic. And we covered that extensively, even as late as 2 weeks ago when we covered the FOIA files that reverse engineered the Twitter files to look from Freedom of Information requests exactly what were the communications. And we found out that here, as President Joe Biden created a division of the Department of Homeland Security called the Disinformation Governance Board, a name eerily reminiscent of the Ministry of Truth in George Orwell's 1984, of course. The division head was given to Nina, the singing crazy person Jankowicz, someone who herself has a long history of spreading pro-security state misinformation. In 2018,
he ran a bunch of bad boys.
That was Corn Pop, not Nina.
Why is my camera like that? Why am I?
Oh, hey, where's Reef?
Wait, what is me?
Where
direction do I even go?
What? Hold on. Well, okay. I guess I got to fix that right now. What the heck? How did that happen?
What is that? I don't know.
I don't know, sir.
I don't know, sir. It's like 7 seconds delay on what
I slid over, but okay.
Yeah.
Bro.
Weird.
Okay. Give me a second. Let me. No, go where you need to go so that I can position you right, you silly.
Right. I mean, I don't know.
What the heck?
Like,
wait, I have the wrong camera turned on. That's what's going on.
That makes sense.
No.
Indy fucked up.
Hepcap.
It's okay. Indy.
Hepcap.
I'm here with that.
Okay, there we go.
We're gonna be okay.
Now we got you. Okay, fix yourself. All right. Can I get back to my story now? Thank you.
Maybe.
Shit. Okay, in 2018, she shared an article from the Western intelligence connected outlet Bellingcrap, which blamed, of course, Assad for the 2018 chemical attack in Douma, Syria. We're getting back to Nina Jankowicz, the stinging lunatic. All right?
Yeah.
This allegation was used as justification for the U.S. bombing of Syria and almost triggered a full-scale war with Syria. Of course it did, because that was their plan. This allegation was later contradicted by OCPW whistleblowers, very famously, who found evidence that the gas canisters in Douma were placed and that the victim's symptoms did not match up with those of a chemical attack, and that the CNN reporter was probably full of shit because she smelled chlorine in the air, literally. That was how they determined it was a chemical attack.
Shout out Robert Fisk, Vanessa Beeley.
Shout out to Vanessa. Eva. Yep. Anyway, so after the chemical attack, these findings strongly imply that the attack was staged to trigger Western military intervention. Jankowicz, of course, was a proponent of the absurd Russiagate theory, claiming that Trump was soft on Russia, despite lethal arms to Ukraine, sanctions on Nord Stream, etc. Spreading a theory that Trump was doing the bidding of Putin if he didn't overthrow the government of Venezuela, and spreading the debunked Russian bounties on American troops in Afghanistan theory. Oh, remember that one? And what about the ones where they pass out Viagra? There's always that story that floats around. That always comes out of her too. So we know what's going on in Nina's world. All right. She's got all of us. She has all of us blocked, by the way, on Twitter. Like, every single person here is blocked.
They do know that the military has our military's provided Viagra, no? Like,
maybe.
It's literally anytime you ever go on a mountainous expedition, they provide it. Like in Afghanistan.
No, I did not know that. Why would they want you to be?
Because Viagra has to deal with a blood level and oxygen level. So if you go up where there's low oxygen, and it could be the difference between you having not enough oxygen and having more. It's just the side effect of which might be a 3-hour, problem. But
a 3-hour tour, a 3-hour
right.
tour. Yes. Okay. So,
whatever. I mean, I'm just saying. I mean, I'm not saying, but I'm just saying.
Jankowicz also repeated the debunked claim that the contents of the Hunter Biden laptop are Russian disinformation, because that's what 17 intelligence, quote unquote, information agencies that were trying to skew the narrative away from that were trying to do. So she obviously works with them. The most disturbing fact of Jankowicz's past record, which isn't even any of those, was reported by the nation's Lev Golinkin, who then revealed that while working for the U.S. government-funded anti-disinformation group Stop Fake in Ukraine, she whitewashed neo-Nazi parliamentary groups, parliamentary, well, it might as well be, but neo-Nazi paramilitary groups who have well-documented histories of human rights abuses. Never met a Nazi she didn't love. Nina Jankowicz also has a long history of attacking dissident journalists by name. She called WikiLeaks scum and accused it of being a cog in a much larger operation. She claimed Glenn Greenwald was disgusting and responsible for online harassment against women because, of course, he critiqued New York Times reporter at the time, now
Russian
independent.
scum!
Yep, Taylor Lorenz for her bad reporting, which it is. She also called the anti-war outlet the Gray Zone, a Russian influence op and a source of disinfo because she took issue with their reporting and criticism of American foreign policy. Plus, that's what Bellingcrap has been spreading, and she takes everything they say as the gospel. While the Disinformation Governance Board was eventually shut down after facing widespread backlash, journalists Li Fang and Ken Klippenstein revealed that the DHS continued to police speech online. And they would know. I'll just drop that right there. But also, we're continuing on the records of the Biden administration. We haven't even gotten to the record of the Trump administration on censorship and press freedom and journalism. Because don't forget, Jamal Khashoggi, I believe, happened under Trump as well. We're going to get to that, but let's also remember that under Biden, Democrats ignored the Twitter files and shoot the messenger. Now, there are some, and some who we are very close with, who will say that the Twitter files was a limited hangout, that they only got screenshots, that it wasn't source data, but and that it was hand selected and filtered through Twitter's lawyers. And it was very partisan. And I will say, agreed to all of that. However, there was still a lot of important information and confirmations of things that were questionable. So when Elon Musk bought Twitter, he leaked a trove of internal documents to reporters such as Matt Taibbi, Li Fang, and Michael Schellenberger. There was also, what's her name? Barry Weiss, who I don't like, and Alex Guttentag on the COVID files. And there were several others as well. But those were the three most famous. Some of the biggest scandals revealed by these documents were that the FBI, DHS, DNI, and NSA worked with Twitter to censor American speech, a direct violation of the First Amendment. But other stories of censorship revealed by the Twitter files were that Twitter worked with the government-aligned think tank Virality Project to censor people going against official narrative around COVID, including reports of vaccinated people contracting COVID, natural immunity, saying COVID was leaked from a lab, and stories of true vaccine effects, safe and effective. They also revealed that big pharma-funded They also revealed that big pharma-funded think tanks were pressuring Twitter to take down people pushing for a generic vaccine and those opposed, of course, to vaccine mandates. That's when you got your anti-vax hunters started to come out. When journalists Matt Taibbi and Michael Schellenberger testified to the House Judiciary Committee, we, of course, covered that on How Do We Miss That extensively. Democrats on the committee, led by Joe Biden, no, not by Joe, well, okay, undermined the contents of these documents and defended the censorship policy. Democratic Representative Colin Allred of Texas, who was a former Dallas Cowboy, and now he's running for Senate against Ted Cruz, said to Taibbi, the dumbest thing I've ever heard anybody say, if you could take off the tinfoil hat, you will see that there is not a vast conspiracy, but that ordinary folks and national security agencies responsible for our security are trying their best to find a way that our online discourse doesn't get people hurt or see our democracy undermined. A word salad.
Damn, it must be true.
A word salad of all word salads. All right. Just no. That's that's straight censorship or monitoring of speech, free speech, speech that is supposed to be free and protected so that you can feel better. And that is not cool. No. So Democratic Representative Sylvia Garcia, of course, demanded that Taibbi reveal his source, that Musk as his source for the Twitter files, which is a direct violation of journalistic ethics. And Taibbi literally said, I am willing to go to jail. Look, you may know who it is, but I can't tell you who it is. That's the same thing as Julian Assange with a guy by the name of Seth Rich, by the way. He can't tell you who it is.
Right.
Democratic representative and Democratic primary rigger, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, very nice dissident, accused Taibbi of hitting the jackpot for reporting this story while ignoring the content. Of course, the Democrats' reaction to the Twitter files went even further than this. We know the FTC tried to demand that Elon Musk turn over the names of all journalists who received Twitter files. And Taibbi, coincidentally, quote unquote, received a visit from the IRS the same day he testified on Capitol Hill about the Twitter files. Hey, how about that? And as the Wall Street Journal once put it, quote, the curious timing of this visit on the heels of the FTC demand that Twitter turn over the names of journalists raises questions about potential intimidation. The Wall Street
potential.
You think? The Wall Street Journal also noted that it is not typical for the IRS to show up unannounced at people's houses, saying that typically when the IRS challenges some part of a tax return, it sends a dunning letter, or it might seek more information from the taxpayer or tax preparer, the accountant. If the IRS wants to audit a return, it schedules a meeting at the agent's office. It doesn't drop by unannounced.
Like he's fucking Kool-Aid man.
Right? Yeah. Oh, yeah. When Taibbi was interviewed by MSNBC host and propagandist Mehdi Hassan attacked Taibbi, of course, for a few minor errors, the difference between CIS and CISA in the Twitter files, reporting while ignoring the bulk of the revelations, because he was told to by his bosses. And he can lie and say he wasn't, but we all know it.
I have yet to meet a Hassan that I thought was a good person. I'm sure some I assume are good. Some I assume are good people, but all the people tell me Hassans, they're terrible people.
Oh, yeah.
The worst people.
All right. And then, of course, we have, disturbingly, this interview was used then by Democratic representative who's never really been elected. She's appointed Stacey Plaskett to accuse Taibbi of perjury and then threaten him with up to 5 years in jail. Plaskett, of course, accused him of perjury for a few honest mistakes, which he corrected and did not, and of course, also didn't undermine the bulk of the story. They, whether one was paid by the government or was connected to the government and taking orders from and working with the government, it effectively meant the same thing between CIS and CISA. Yeah. And that was it. They tried to bog you down on a technicality that doesn't matter to drown out the story that does. And they effectively did that to the shit lips. So now we're going to look at the record of the Trump administration. But were there anything on this list from Biden that we missed? I mean, that's a fucking laundry list, by the way. But going after Matt Taibbi and ignoring the Twitter files, prosecuting Julian Assange, pointing to Nina Jankowicz and the head of misinformation, the Obama stuff and all the prosecution of whistleblowers, and the Espionage Act, well, again, forcing Assange into a plea deal.
Did that Miss Plaskett have any connection to a particular island owner?
Well, there was some
Quite
kind of a
possibly.
connection. There was some kind of a connection, but she also, there was some maybe a Citigroup connection to her, a Jamie Dimon. I don't remember who it was. You can't quote me. Allegedly,
Neil Diamond, maybe.
It could be Neil Diamond. It's Sweet Caroline, right? Yes, that Plaskett, according to our friend David Denuno over there, who says, yes, that Plaskett, yes, I guess that is her. But let's get back to the Trump record, from torturing and trying to kill Julian Assange, thank you, Mike Pompeo, to threatening to deport anti-genocide activists, right? The gravest threat to press freedom. So again, this is the Dissident reporting, the 307.substack.com, and all these notes will be in the description and in the Substack afterwards. You can go to indiemediatoday.com for the Substack. So while the Obama administration prosecuted more whistleblowers than all the other administrations combined, the one line they did not cross was going after Assange and WikiLeaks. But this was because they understood they couldn't do this without prosecuting U.S. news organizations and journalists. This line,
which they wouldn't do.
Well, they didn't in the Obama administration, but the Trump administration certainly had no problem with it. They crossed that line, who brought espionage charges against Assange for publishing documents leaked to him by Chelsea Manning. This was a grave threat to press freedom, as Reporters Without Borders put it. Quote, this would set a dangerous precedent for all journalists who publish classified information that is of public interest. Yes, that was their plan. The case was condemned as a threat to free speech by human rights groups like Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch that have issues of their own. Civil rights,
yes, they do.
Civil liberties organizations like the ACLU and even the New York Times that are also incredibly neolib controlled and not nearly as respected as they should be. I mean, respected a lot more than respected more than they should be. Sorry. Because of this charge, Assange was forced to be in solitary confinement in Belmarsh Prison, which the UN Special Rapporteur on Torture Nils Melzer and two other medical experts concluded, quote, constituted psychological torture in a form of torture aimed at destroying the personality of an individual, unquote. The Trump administration attempted to go even further than prosecuting and torturing a journalist for releasing classified material about war crimes and tried to kidnap and kill him. We know this because Yahoo News reported in 2021 that Trump administration officials and the CIA had plotted to kidnap Julian Assange and even discussed assassinating him at the highest levels of the Trump administration. Yeah, that was Pompeo, and Trump discussed that. Trump even put whistleblower Chelsea Manning back in jail after being released in 2017 because she refused to testify against Assange in this bogus case. Yep. People forget a lot of this stuff. Trump supporters insist he's fighting the deep state. But his administration went even further than Obama and Biden in the war on whistleblowers by prosecuting not only whistleblowers, but reporters who publish information leaked by them, which is protected by the First Amendment, by the way. Trump, well, it was, and now we don't know. Now that he's been forced into a deal, they can use that as precedent. But they're claiming that they're not going to be able to, which is, we know that they will when they'll need to. Trump also did not pardon any of the whistleblowers prosecuted in the Obama-Biden administration and prosecuted whistleblower Reality Winner, thank you so much again to The Intercept, using the Espionage Act.
I don't stand for that.
Yep. So Trump threatens to crack down on the Palestine solidarity movement. And this is another thing that we are concerned about. Of course, while Trump and his supporters claim to support free speech, they abandon this view when it comes to the people protesting the genocide in Gaza. Huh, how about that?
Yep.
Follow the money. It's down. It comes to the Adelsons usually. The Republican 2024 platform says it wants to, quote, deport pro-Hamas radicals and make our college campuses safe and patriotic again. Where are you deporting Americans that are pro-Hamas? What? Okay. This is a clear threat to deport foreign students protesting the genocide in Gaza and to crack down on the rights of American students protesting the genocide. In the education section, the platform says it will fire radical left accreditors on college campuses, a clear threat to the First Amendment, and something that will certainly be used to crack down on professors critical of Israel and their repression of and slaughter of Palestinians. Journalist and friend of the show, Max Blumenthal from the Gray Zone, reported that the pro-Trump Fox News, former NYPD Inspector Paul Morrow, said pro-Palestinian protesters on college campuses were responsible for the attempted Trump assassination and needed to be investigated.
Don't lie.
You lie. You lie. This is a good insight into how the Trump administration will crack down on anti-genocide protesters if he's elected in 2024.
Uh-huh.
So, if and when now that we're dealing with a clown show on the other side. But again, I don't really care.
This is the most election of our lifetime.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who it is. For whether it's Pokemon go to the polls or it's anybody else, it doesn't matter. All right. So, like on many other issues, both candidates are, no matter who it is in 2024 of the blue and red parties, again, not eliminating that there are other candidates that all have their own issues, by the way, but aren't really polling at any significant number. Sorry, Booby, you're not. You're not. Give it up. The Democrats have gone full authoritarian under Biden, trying to censor the internet and crack down on dissident journalists and whistleblowers. While Trump supporters believe he is the antidote to this, his record on freedom of the press and his threats to crack down on anti-genocide protesters show he will not be any better. He also is looking at Jamie Dimon for Treasury Secretary and Larry Fink for Commerce Secretary. So, again, let's cue up Misty.
What? We're fucked.
Right, yes. We're very much fucked. So, that was a long one from the Dissident, but it was good and substantive and reminds us of all the crap that we've been putting up with. Thank you so much to the Uniparty, because it doesn't matter.
Pretty good.
Just remember, nothing fundamentally changed, and that's what was promised, and that's what we are getting. All right, so
nobody cares.
Nobody cares, except for these people that we deeply, deeply appreciate. Actually, Hi, fams. We got a whole bunch of people out there. You got Topher over on Kick. I don't know who Topher is, but welcome. Good to see you. It's me, Sarah P. I see her over there. But all these wonderful people have supported our channel and supported independent media by kicking in a couple of bucks to help us keep the lights on. And we operate on a value for value system here, as some of our friends in independent media like to say. And
that's how we covered it
3
years ago.
Well, we've been saying this shit for 4 years now. So, ode to our friends that have not completely lost their fucking minds and aren't just losing the plot. And thank God for some of them. Yeah. Yeah, ha ha. Yeah, God forbid you pretend to be a computer. Uh-huh. All right, bro. It's good to see you here.
God forbid.
Natalie, representation. That's right. No taxation without representation. You must be in DC, right? Definitely writing it in. Cookies, yes. Please donate to INN if you can. Making stream content is not free or cheap. Cookies would know he's now doing the 10 Rabbit podcast with Mastermind Hour and is learning all about just how much time, effort, money, and sweat and aggravation has to go into making shows like this. And we love it, and we do. But we certainly love getting some support too. All right.
Money, please.
Well, you can certainly always ask for that. So,
said please.
Yes, you did. We're going to go to Indie Media Award honoree and Judd Legum. And, I like Judd. And I think that as a 3-man team, he's one of the best there is. I think he's way too... What?
What is he like? What is he like? One of those kids in a trench coat?
Well, actually,
like a couple of kids stacked on top.
it's actually one man and two ladies, because he's got Tesla and he's got Rebecca working with him, and as a 3-person operation, they do tremendous work. Tremendous work, but they are a little shit-libby, and I'll admit that, because we have to cover some of the spectrum and look at what's being said there. But he also is one of the best numbers guys, and follow the money and follow the numbers and what's going on. And let's break through the narrative. So this one broke me, because I read this last week. He wrote this about a week and a half ago, and then at the convention they talked about eliminating tax on tips, and then Nico House, our friend of the that was a frog. Our friend of the show, Nico House, put out a video earlier today about how that narrative is working. Even if it may be bad, it's going to work. We talked, I know Angel and Miss Witchy Perfect last night on Pro Wrestling Talk even talked about it. And yeah, so let's get into why this is a trick. Trump's tip trick, right?
Just the tip?
Well, not just the tip, but just the tip for the boss. As president, Donald Trump's tax policy heavily favored corporations and the wealthy. I don't think anybody, would doubt that. His signature tax legislation, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, overwhelmingly benefited those groups. But as a presidential candidate, Trump campaigns as a populist, just like he did in 2016. In 2024, Trump is touting a proposal to end federal taxation on tips. He made the announcement last month in Nevada, a key battleground state with a large service industry that relies on tips. Hello, Las Vegas. Quote, for these hotel workers and people that get tips, you're going to be very happy because when I get to office, we're going to not charge taxes on tips, he said. We're going to do that right away, first thing in office, because that's true, because it's been a point of contention for years and years and years, and you do a great job of service, because he couldn't have done that in the 4 years that he was already president. Now he's going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
This week, Trump's proposal to end taxes on tips was one of the 20 promises included in the official 2024 Republican Party platform. Large tax cuts for workers and no tax on tips. Narrative busting. This is what this guy is going to help us do here. But this is important, because I'm telling you, everybody around you in your world is going to run around and think that this is actually going to be a good thing. And he's going to explain why not. And maybe we're wrong, and maybe he's wrong, but let's look at it. Trump's plan to end taxes on tips might help him politically with service industry workers. His campaign is urging people to vote for Trump for no tax on tips on their restaurant receipts. Okay?
Like those dumb religious dollar bills that you open up and it's like, yeah, come join our church. Like those terrible human beings. Okay. Good for them.
Republicans in Congress have already introduced legislation to implement Trump's plan and end federal taxation of tips. Notably, the bill would only exempt tips from income taxes and not payroll taxes, which represents the majority of federal taxes owed by low-income workers.
Okay, so it does nothing. Got it.
But the proposal, if it were ever implemented, could have a detrimental effect on most tipped workers. How? The primary beneficiaries would be people who own and operate hotels, restaurants, and other businesses that employ tipped workers. In other words, people like Trump. Remember that he owns hotels, folks. Or at least he did. I don't know if he still does. First, but he certainly owns Mar-a-Lago. Many people who rely on tips earn so little money that they already pay no federal income taxes. For example, half of all servers earn $32,000 or less. A server with a family who earns $32,000 does not owe any federal income tax and therefore would not benefit at all from Trump's proposal. Yeah. The bigger issue is that the federal minimum wage for tipped workers is $2.13 an hour. I'm going to repeat that because it's literally been that since I'm in fucking high school. The bigger issue is that the federal minimum wage for tipped workers is $2.13 an hour. The tipped minimum wage has not increased since 1991. Like I said, since I was in fucking high school. Combined with tips, these workers are supposed to earn a minimum of $7.25 an hour. That isn't close to a living wage in the United States since 2024.
The rent is too damn high.
No, the wage is too damn low. It ain't about the rent. It's about the fucking wage.
Why not? Why not both?
Why not both?
Why not both?
Why not both? Right? As a result, of course, we know 7 states, that's Alaska, California, Minnesota, Montana, Nevada, Oregon, and Washington, have eliminated the tipped minimum wage and require all employers to pay their employees the same minimum wage regardless of whether they receive tips. The Biden administration requires federal contractors to pay tipped workers the same as minimum wages as others, so it is covered in a lot of places. Major cities like New York and Chicago also have recently implemented similar policies, and employers hate it. Numerous other cities and states are considering following suits. The hotel and restaurant industry has been desperate to halt the momentum of state initiatives to raise the minimum wage. Why? The National Restaurant Administration or Association, which represents restaurant owners, has endorsed Trump's proposal. So, if Trump is on board and he owns hotels and restaurants, and the National Restaurant Association, which represents the owners, are on board, start to get worried.
Yep.
Eliminating taxation on tips could sap support from efforts both to eliminate the tipped minimum wage and raise the minimum wage overall. How? While most service industry workers would receive little or no benefit from eliminating income taxes on tips, they would benefit from increasing their minimum wage to $15 an hour or higher, especially if they're only making $2.13 an hour now.
Yep.
The Tax Policy Center notes that this trade-off would be particularly brutal for back-of-the-house staff, such as dishwashers, who often receive only a small share of tips, enough to qualify as tipped workers, but not enough to live on or to pay taxes. Now, here's the other thing. That's why the Restaurant Workers United Union, that represents many of the industry's workers, opposes Trump's plan. Why? Because the call to end taxes on tips is just a misguided way trying to fix a problem of uplifting the lower class. And that's what a bartender and organizer in Austin said, all right, that Trump's proposal is not just the wrong solution, but a fake solution, which is pretty accurate, all right? Then a question of equity. There are some tipped employees, including the 10% of servers that earn $60,000 or more, who would significantly benefit from ending the income taxes on tips. It isn't that it won't affect anybody. So again, 10% of servers, right? But why should those higher paid tipped workers get a special tax benefit while those making the same income in industries without tips are excluded? Why should a waiter who earns $60,000 a year pay less taxes than someone making the same amount in a warehouse or a grocery store? Well, because their wages are not necessarily set, would be my answer. Because a tipped wage, you still have to, it's not guaranteed for the hours that you work. You're not getting that money at all. I mean, there's clearly a difference. So he says there's no clear answer to these questions other than the proposal to end taxes on tips may have political benefits for Trump. I think that is, again, he's trying to back his way into, well, how is this going to benefit Trump? Because Trump doesn't do anything unless it benefits him. And that's the way that Judd sees everything, because he has a case of TDS for sure.
Don't be rude.
Hey, I got to call it like I see it. Creating a tipping economy, ending federal taxation of tips could prompt more industries to shift from paying wages to soliciting tips. And that's the other thing that I'm worried about here, is that in freeing this up, they're going to try to push more people back into smaller wages plus a tip. In addition to potential tax benefits for employees, it would transfer some of the responsibility for paying workers from the business to its customers. And businesses certainly like that. For example, the Wall Street Journal notes that an auto body shop could restrain its prices and wages and strongly encourage tipping as a way to get untaxed income to workers and keep their hourly labor rate low. If there is a significant shift to tipping over wages, it would also increase the cost of the proposal. The Committee for Responsible Federal Budget estimates that incentivizing more tipping by ending federal taxation could cost the federal government up to $500 billion over 10 years. That's not good. Why would we do that? Right? Then, of course, we have this sordid history of tipping. And I'm not going to, okay, that's short. We'll just finish off with that. According to the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights, tipping in the U.S. is rooted in a racist system which was designed to keep African Americans in an economically and socially subordinate position following the end of slavery. I did not know that. Did you know that, Reef?
No.
Tipping was related to slavery? Prior to the Civil War,
nope.
Tipping was frowned upon. It was viewed by many as an aristocratic European practice that was incompatible with American democracy. But after the elimination of slavery...
I'd love to get more. Yeah, is he going to give us more info on that?
I guess. After the elimination of slavery, many restaurants and rail operators embraced tipping because it allowed them to hire newly freed slaves without having to pay them. They would be forced to work for tips alone. The practice was designed to keep African Americans in an economically and socially subordinate position. That's what's being presented here. And agreed, because even today, 40% of people who work for tips are still people of color.
Mm-hmm.
Further, I don't know if tipping really makes them free because,
that's being facetious, sir.
But here's worse. Studies show that customers discriminate against African American servers, consistently tipping them less than white servers, regardless of the quality of service.
But we solved racism, Indy. We solved it.
Dude, honestly,
Did we solve it?
All right, I'm embarrassed to say I've never even thought about that because I've never treated any waitress or anyone who handled my food any differently than anyone else who ever handled my food. But wow,
Did you see the Mythbusters thing on that?
Oh man, no.
The Mythbusters did they gave Carrie Byron larger breasts and to see if she would get more tips. Guess what you think happened?
Did she get more tips?
Oh yeah, quite a bit.
Just the tip.
Quite a bit more.
Just the tip.
Yep.
The movement to end the tip minimum wage to create a single fair wage for all workers is about recognizing the dignity and worth of all workers. Trump's proposal would push the United States in the opposite direction, making millions of Americans even more dependent on wealthy patrons. And that is really what Judd's contention is. And I'm not in total opposition to that. I'm pretty much in agreement with it. I think, again, there's...
Well, people in chat are mentioning that this only goes for credit cards, digital transactions, right? Mm-hmm. So if you tip in cash, it's different, but as we all know, they want to get rid of cash. So,
Oh, mastermind. TIPP in the USA. TIPP in the USA. It doesn't fit. No, you're close. No. Sorry, man. Mouse, my girlfriend was a waitress when we lived in Australia and made about 2/3 of what I made as an engineer. Wow. And that was not tipped, correct, Mouse? Because I believe that they do not allow for tips in Australia. I believe that it's illegal. But if there's a tax incentive for the owners, I'm skeptical, but there's a win for the workers. See, so Sarah thinks that there is a win for the workers there, and that's why I want to look at it.
Possible.
It is. BROK in the USA. That's a good one. For sure. And they're okay. Cookies, come on, man. All right. I will admit I tip a little more if she has a badonkadonk and she's sweet. If it's a dude, 15% max. Oh, that is such a single guy thing to say. I love you, bro. I do. I love you for it.
Very much is.
Right in jail, right away.
Golden Monarch says, for the moment, Indian Reef tipping doesn't have to get reported for tax if tips are still cash, right? But the government wants your tips to go digital. And remember that a lot of the tips come on the credit card, and most restaurant bills today are paid on credit card. So
I mean, you gotta in people and tell them to make sure they tip their waitresses. I feel like that's important here.
Always tip your waitress and tip your waitresses and tip your stream hosts. By the way, we work on tips here. Speaking of eliminating the tax on tips,
and drink responsibly.
So if Trump does eliminate the tax on tips, we can report all of these as tips because you guys are just giving us a tip for what we're doing, right? So yeah, you can do that by Cash App and Patreon, PayPal, and Rumble. And, of course, the Ko-fi QR code that's sitting up there by where Reef is sitting over there, over his dome and next to me. And, yeah, so we're moving right along, and that's good because we got one story to get to, and then we'll get to Whitney. And the next story is a doozy, another one about the UAW and about labor unions and about how not all labor unions are wonderful. All right. Now, remember, we've been
children.
Yep. We've been covering that the UAW had to have a federal monitor because of all the corruption and that they had that the NLRB had to basically bust them up and they had officers go to jail, embezzling, all kinds of stuff was happening. So they Hi-ya is right, Uncle Roger. So weak. So this UAW monitor, 4 months, has been trying to get access to documents, work with them, and find out what the hell's going on about voting, about all kinds of things. But they're citing continuing culture of fear of retaliation in their latest status report. Oh, boy. So, again, this is from Shannon Jones over at World Socialist website. I know it's kind of hard to see, WSWS.org. I have my issues with some of their stuff, but as far as holding labor unions accountable, they are about the best that there is. Because they think that everybody's corrupt. And you know what? They're right. Nice. Gregory Walker, slide the tip in here. Come on, man. Family show, but yes, we do accept tips. Thank you. Yes, tips. Aha. Okay. Thanks. Hobo. Good to see you. All right. In a status report filed July 12th, the court-appointed UAW Monitor, Neil Barofsky, cited a continuing culture of fear and retaliation within the UAW apparatus and noted widespread reports by staff of unethical behavior or misconduct within the union's leadership. Nothing to see here. Sean Fain?
Nope.
Well, Sean Fain's got nothing to say. While couched in diplomatic language, the Monitor paints a picture of a corrupt UAW bureaucracy riven by factional infighting and resistant to implementing even the cosmetic reforms put in place by the Monitor in the wake of a corruption scandal that sent 2 former UAW presidents to prison.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Yes, there is. The report follows...
Felons are people too, Indy. God.
Yeah, we have to pay for them.
They're kind of grifters.
Yeah. Much more so than any of the podcasters that I know. But the report follows by less than 1 month the 9th status report in which Barofsky complained of lapses in compliance with Monitor's oversight. That's very kind. In particular, the failure of the UAW leadership to provide thousands of requested documents related to misuse of union funds and other potentially criminal acts.
Yep.
Nothing to worry about here. All right. On July 8th, the Monitor filed a motion in federal court seeking to force the UAW to hand over documents he'd requested. The Monitor asserted in court filing that the UAW stonewalling made his office unable to effectively carry out his responsibility to remove fraud, corruption, illegal behavior, dishonesty, and unethical practices from the UAW. Why?
Now, Indy, I sent you something today.
It's because they don't want it removed. Oh, yes. Well,
what did I send you?
It's that
tell the people what I sent you.
They're endorsing Cam already.
Uh-huh. Yep. She already put on the comfortable shoe for them. You know? So that's going to be fun. That's going to be great.
The Monitor's most recent filing cites the results of a cultural assessment conducted by a third-party internal audit that surveyed hundreds of UAW staff. It notes that of the approximately 100 union staff who reported that they witnessed unethical behavior or misconduct during the 12 months prior to the survey, over 30% said they did not report it. Why? All survey participants were asked why they wouldn't report it, and in response, over 40% said they would decline to report out of fear of retaliation. What do you mean? Calls to the Monitor's hotline have independently and repeatedly echoed these same concerns. Among the allegations the Monitor is investigating are instances of retaliation against Margaret Mock and Rich Boyer, which we've covered before. The latter was removed by Fain as the head of the union's Stellantis department. Boyer alleges that Fain asked for favors for his domestic partner and her sister that would have violated the UAW ethical practices codes and financial practices. Fain's fiance works for the UAW Chrysler National Training Center in Michigan. Fain previously was a co-director for the NTC, which has served for decades as a conduit for hundreds of millions of dollars in corporate cash into UAW coffers. Huh. This unseemly faction fight within the UAW leadership, along with allegations and counter-allegations of corrupt practices, comes as anger among rank-and-file workers is boiling over the 2023 contract betrayal, as well as the UAW's endorsement of genocide Joe Biden, and now, of course, Cam laughing clown Kamala. Last month, the union apparatus was barely able to contain a rebellion by 48,000 UAW academic workers in California who staged a political strike against the Gaza genocide and the brutal suppression of campus protests. They were barely able to contain a rebellion. Why should they? I don't want them to contain it.
We've got you surrounded.
At the same time, a federal judge recently ruled in favor of socialist rank-and-file Mack Trucks worker Will Lehman in his lawsuit against voter suppression in the sham 2022-23 election, which brought Fain to power in the first place, and the reformer ticket. Both the Monitor and the U.S. Department of Labor had sided with the UAW bureaucracy in attempting to block Lehman's complaint before from being considered on its merits, but not anymore, I don't believe. In a footnote to his report, the Monitor, Borofsky, acknowledged that the union's record-keeping practices were subject to several challenges by union members, in an oblique reference to Lehman's charges that the UAW refused to update members' mailing addresses so they could receive ballots to vote in the election. That was part of his detailed complaint that the UAW did as little as possible to inform members during the first ever direct elections of top union officers. That's really important, and I'm going to stop right there, because in the history of the Teamsters, I mean the UAW, it was only the Barnes, the captains and the leaders of the different locals that voted for union leadership. And there are like 160 locals, and they represent everybody that's part of that union. And a lot of times the union members would feel like their vote wasn't represented because how they felt was never recorded on the books, because their barn or, their local didn't feel the same way and didn't vote the way they did. This gave them direct voice for the first time. And it scared the shit out of leadership because they didn't know what was going to happen. And, the last thing that leadership wants is an unpredictable vote. So they did what they had to rig it, or according to Lehman, allegedly. And now
allegedly.
It's still coming out in federal court that this is exactly what they did. All right. That Borowski seeks to dismiss Lehman's complaints by citing the Department of Labor's whitewash of the UAW bureaucracy. That's insane. He's working in cahoots with UAW leadership, the Federal Monitor. He's working against will. Why? Yeah. Because I don't know why. Because he's getting stonewalled by the current administration. Lehman would at least come in and give him the transparency that he's looking for.
Shame. Shame.
Right?
Shame.
Shame. While pointing to a culture of fear and retaliation among bureaucrats within the UAW apparatus, the Monitor's report predictably says nothing about the overt lies and intimidation tactics used by the bureaucracy to ram through the 2023 Big Three agreement and other sellout contracts. This included promoting false claims that the supposed record contract, which contained pay raises that didn't even keep pace with inflation, guaranteed the promotion of temporary workers with more than 9 months' experience to full-time work. In fact, Stellantis and other auto companies started mass firings and layoffs shortly after the contracts were signed, and there was nothing that UAW could do about it.
Nothing.
Fain,
what do you want to do?
Fain then removed Boyer for... but what's crazy, Fain removed Boyer for dereliction of duty, alleging that he agreed to separate concessions which have undermined the jobs and conditions of Stellantis workers. Boyer shot back.
What?
Yep. Boyer shot back with a widely circulated internal memo revealing that Fain and other executive board members were fully aware that the promises he and Fain made to temporary workers to sell the contract were lies. They tried to hang this guy out to dry, and he dragged the receipts right out and said, fuck you. If you're taking me down, I'm taking you all down with me. Nor did the Monitor note the strong arm tactics that the UAW used to force through the contract at Mack Trucks in Macungie, Pennsylvania. All right, that's where Will works, I believe. Striking workers were told by the UAW leaders that they would be replaced by scabs and abandoned to their fate if they didn't vote to ratify a sellout deal that they had previously rejected. Seriously, this is crazy. The continuing revelations of UAW corruption make more urgent than ever the call by the International Workers Alliance of rank and file committees for new UAW elections under the control of rank and file. You would think that the workers would actually fight for this, but they don't either know or don't care enough to fight for it, apparently. I don't understand it. The aim of this would be to throw out the corrupt leadership and implement a radically new course aimed at putting power in the hands of the rank and file and abolishing the bureaucracy. Rank and file workers should also demand access for independent review of all the concealed UAW documents. Right?
Not the documents.
Oh, yeah. Referring to the recent moves by Fain to strip Mock and Boyer of key duties, the Monitor wrote, specifically, reports to the Monitor's hotline from union staff have cited the actions taken against the Secretary, Treasurer, and Vice President as driving retaliation fears that reporting alleged abuses might lead to retribution from the President's office. Wait, what was that again? Yes. If we say something, we might get in trouble. Yep, that's basically what they're saying. All right. Given the fragility of the union's cultural perception of retaliation, listen to all this corporal speak. All right. Whether they're appropriate or not, how recent these acts are God almighty, it's just talking around this. How recent these acts are perceived by the union staff must be taken into account when tackling this persistent cultural challenge. What? The Monitor is just talking around himself.
Keep it secret. Keep it safe.
All right. The Monitor also pointed to the decision by Fain to take over duties such as procurement. That's purchasing. All right. Formerly under Secretary Treasurer Mock's office, he cautioned that the charges risk diluting the role of Secretary Treasurer as a potential independent check on actions that pertain to financial approvals and oversight of expenditures. So now you're removing any kind of a check on the president's balance, right? And now, especially when it comes to spending money, the union must tread care.
Where's the money, Lebowski?
Yeah, this is a presidency that already got accused of embezzling $1 million plus. Not Sean Fain, but somebody in that position. So now they're trying to loosen the chains so that he could do the same thing. What? Right?
Yeah.
So the union must tread carefully in removing the potential checks and balances on authority, especially those that concern financial matters, given the union's history of financial corruption, the cultural concerns still present at the union, and the relative nascency of its compliance program. Right. The fact that they're stonewalling, that they're not giving out any information, and they're trying to make this go away. The Monitor's report also recited a list of areas where the UAW was delaying implementing reforms that it had pledged to implement. For example, again, the Federal Monitor, Borofsky, said that little had been done to implement the UAW's new conference and events expense policy. No surprise. He cautions that in prior reports, the Monitor highlighted the need for additional oversight and scrutiny of union conference and event expenses. But of course, they're not being forthcoming. In addition to the above, the Monitor cited the union's foot dragging on establishing controls over procurement and vendor selection process, noting the record of union officials enriching themselves through kickbacks on union branded merch.
Okay.
Yep. Hey, UAW merch. Think about the amount of UAW members that buy UAW merch. That's not a little amount. All right. They want a little piece on everything. You know, it's like, ugh. He also expressed, again, nepotism, cronyism in hiring, right? That there was nothing done in procedures to reverse that practice. All of this only vindicates the warnings by Lehman that the replacement by one bureaucrat with another would do nothing to end the corrupt pro-company character of the UAW apparatus or empower the rank and file. Only the formation of new democratically controlled rank and file committees can transfer power to workers on the shop floor, which of course the union has no interest in doing. The union is directly at odds with the rank and file workers here, and they can claim that they're not. But why are they hiding all this from a Federal Monitor? The deepening crisis at the UAW apparatus takes place alongside the mounting turmoil in the Democratic Party after Biden's disastrous Democratic debate performance against Trump. All right, of course, we know Biden styles himself as the most pro-union president in history, and who recently called it the AFL-CIO his domestic NATO, meaning that they're Nazis too? No, bad. Has been endorsed by the UAW apparatus, and of course they're now endorsing Kamala, and Fain has been one of his most loyal promoters. However, with the Democratic campaign in freefall, a Reuters report cites a source that claims the UAW leadership met last week to discuss concerns about Biden's re-election chances and is considering its next options. Yeah, it sure did. It got in line. That's what it did.
You're done.
Right? So, whatever the truth of these assertions, the fact is that the UAW apparatus and the Democratic Party are deeply discredited in the eyes of workers for facilitating the Israeli genocide against Palestinians, supporting the ongoing U.S.-backed proxy war in Ukraine against Russia, and enforcing declining living standards and job cuts at home. Whatever the outcome in November, workers face an existential fight against the destruction of living standards and democratic rights at home and the threat of global war. Nothing fundamentally changes. They are interchangeable. It is a uniparty. It's crucial that workers take the measure of the UAW bureaucracy and prepare a rebellion to overthrow the union apparatus and transfer power to the workers themselves. I'd love to see that happen, like federally too, where we overthrow the federal government and transfer powers to the peoples themselves. But that's a whole other story.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. Democracy simply doesn't work.
Well, it can, but not when it's corrupted by corporate interests and unlimited donor. But such a struggle must be based on the understanding that workers face a fight, not just against this or that employer or that employer, but against the entire capitalist setup, its political parties, the Democrats and Republicans, as well as the UAW servants of big business. So, oh man, I'm exhausted with these guys. WSWS does a good job. Somebody's got to call this stuff out, because I don't see anybody else talking about the UAW Federal Monitor except for in red states where it's an inconvenient thing where they're trying to gotcha the Democrats who have aligned with the union. But in a blue state, we don't hear about this at all, ever. We have to look for this. All right. All right. Woohoo! We have gotten to that portion of the program, folks. American Dad did a whole story on the gas mafia. Very funny, Cowboy Kitty. Yep. The Dems would do anything for unions as long as the unions vote with them. Yes. Totally agree, Cookies. Everybody, I guess,
until they want to squash your strike, then they do that.
They quell protests, rig elections, elevate corporate-friendly presidents. Yeah, just like a Democrat should. I mean, yeah, it's really bad. What's the point of a union? Is that this is my problem with unions, is that they add a third middleman in there that has a completely different agenda from the individual worker. And that is the existence of the union.
Are reformist in nature.
But it's the existence of the union itself. It's the fact that it has to have a presence and an authority in the first place. That is the problem.
Well, you see, Indy, the thing is...
There's always the macro, and then there's the micro.
No. No, there's not. Cynics over on Twitter, and Steve Gee is over on... He's normally over on Rumble. I hope we're live on Rumble. Rumble.com/C/Indie News Network. We're also live on Rockfin.com/IND Left News. Rockfin has been broken for like 5 weeks for INN. I don't know what's going on with it. I've been reaching out to them. They have not given me an answer. They're working on it. That's all I know.
Yeah.
All right. I've got a big story. And again, a lot of people have already have talked about this or heard about this. We're going to read the whole damn thing, because that's what we do here. We read the articles, and that's something that I actually am proud of. Other people, not so much, but I'm proud of the fact that we actually read the whole thing and let you guys figure it out for yourselves while we're breaking it down. Not on Rumble.
Well, looks like we got ourselves a reader.
God damn it. All right. We'll have to rerun it there later. Whitney Webb, for those who don't know, Unlimited Hangout Indie Media Award honoree. She's inaugural class, first ballot Hall of Famers type of thing. For those who don't know, learn something, follow, subscribe, support, follow her on Twitter. You will be blown away quickly. And then watch her do an interview and watch her recall in an interview. And you're just like, oh my God, how she's a name dropper constantly, but she also connects the dots. Well, this one worked for this, and they did this, so you got to figure that they did this, and wow. She gives you the lowdown and the breakdown on what's going on with JD Vance, who is Trump's VP pick. Now, I don't know how many of you know who Peter Thiel is. I don't know how many of you know who Palantir is. I don't know. We're gonna get into all that. But what she says is that while JD Vance has his own controversies, his close connection to billionaire Peter Thiel, who is poised to have unprecedented influence in a new Trump administration, should deeply unsettle every American who cares about freedom, privacy, and reining in the surveillance state. And that certainly, I think, applies to all of us here. Okay. Yes, Whitney Webb. That's right. V.S. Adams. Whitney Webb. Jimmy Dore headline, unions are switching to Trump. Oh my God. Okay.
She was like that. She was in that new Spider-Man movie, right?
Whitney?
Madam Webb.
Oh, God. Okay. After the recent revelation that Donald Trump has selected JD Vance as his VP nominee, public attention not only turned toward Vance, but toward the billionaire Peter Thiel. Why? Vance has been one of several prominent Thiel proteges whose profile has risen in recent years, with other proteges of the PayPal co-founder, including OpenAI's Sam Altman and Anduril's Palmer Luckey. Recent reports have also noted that Thiel first recruited Vance into his circle while Vance was still a student at Yale Law School. Ding, 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 red flags. Shortly thereafter, Vance joined Thiel's investment firm, Mithril Capital, where he worked for 2 years before joining Revolution Ventures. Vance played a major role.
He just went straight to Runic Capital. God.
Oh. No, right. So Vance played a major role in Revolution's Rise of the Rest seed fund, whose major investors included Amazon's Jeff Bezos and the Walton family of Walmart, who boast long-standing deep ties to the Clinton family. Vance later launched his own venture capital firm, Narya Capital, in 2020, which was heavily funded by Thiel as well as former Google CEO Eric Schmidt, also not a good guy and heavily involved in the surveillance state.
Yeah.
Schmidt, a major Democrat donor, has been the guiding hand behind the Biden administration's science and technology policy and has dominated the development of the AI policies of the U.S. military and intelligence communities, largely through his leadership of the National Security Commission on AI. That's a little scary. NSCAI promoted policies like the end of private car ownership and in-person shopping in the United States to advance Americans' adoption of AI as supposed national security imperative in the lead up to the COVID-era lockdowns. Both Schmidt and Thiel are key members of the steering committee of the controversial closed-door and overtly globalist Bilderberg Conference. Nothing to see here, folks. Yep. Newsweek once called Schmidt and Thiel the two most influential figures at Bilderberg. Wow.
It's not a place you want to get accolades like that at.
Well, it's saying something because it's literally the most powerful of the most powerful. Thiel has voted. I'm sorry. Thiel has donated heavily to Vance's political career. He's given $15 million to Vance's successful Senate bid in the 2022 election cycle, in what was then the largest donation ever given to one Senate candidate. No problem.
Okay.
Thiel also joined Vance, a former never-Trumper, to visit Trump's Mar-a-Lago, where Vance successfully won the former president's blessing. Thiel also connected Vance to other members of the so-called PayPal mafia, like David Sachs, who donated $1 million to Vance and hosted a fundraiser for him. Sachs, along with PayPal co-founder Fuck You Elmo Muskhead, were allegedly a key factor in Trump's selection of Vance as vice president, as they ran a secret lobbying campaign for Vance that included media presenter Tucker Carlson. What a surprise!
Nice. Oh, little Tuck.
Thiel had been a major donor to Trump's 2016 presidential campaign and served on the transition team, with other Thiel-linked figures like Trey Stevens dramatically influencing Trump's Pentagon appointments. Nothing to see here. Stevens' influence at the Trump Pentagon also helped develop the military's relationship with the Thiel-funded company Anduril, which was co-founded by Stevens and Thiel fellow Palmer Luckey. A little incestuous here. You're seeing a pattern.
Like Game of Thrones.
Before Anduril, Luckey developed the virtual reality system Oculus Rift, which was later sold to Facebook, where Thiel then served on the board.
Meta. Ooh, Meta.
Anduril is now building a virtual border wall for the federal government and Trump, who long campaigned on building a physical barrier.
Is Mexico going to pay for it?
Of course.
Is Mexico going to pay for it?
Of course.
Please let them do that. Please let them do that in the metaverse. That'd be hilarious.
Yes. Mexico's going to
build a fucking wall.
Mexico's going to pay for the border wall in the metaverse. So
what a fucking cartoon bullshit.
We live in a clown show, folks. So of course, yeah. He abandoned that promise during his first term, but now supports the exact solution that Anduril is selling. Nah.
Funny how that works.
Anduril's unmanned drones have come to play a major role in the Ukrainian military operations during the Russia-Ukraine conflict, as have other controversial Teal-funded companies like Palantir, which is a CIA contractor, and Clearview AI, which used mainly photos posted on Facebook and another Teal-backed company to develop its Orwellian facial recognition database. These companies, close ties to the Ukrainian military, nothing to see here, may impact the second Trump
administration. There's anything wrong with that?
Yes, there is. May impact the second Trump administration's policies as it relates to American support for Ukraine, particularly if Teal is slated to hold significant influence. Beyond Ukraine, this network of Teal-funded defense companies are remaking the face of warfare and slowly but surely replacing the human decision-making with AI. Because we know AI is so great at decision-making.
Go check out how they test these things in Israel with Lavender AI. That's going to be on our INN News section.
What could possibly go wrong? What could possibly go wrong?
It'll be fine.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
Yeah. While these ties should be unsettling on their own, the potential influence of Teal on the upcoming Trump administration should concern every American, and it does me at least, regardless of where they fall on the political spectrum, due to Teal's efforts to rehabilitate and remake some of the intelligence community's most Orwellian and unconstitutional efforts to target domestic dissent. Are you listening, everyone? Domestic dissent. Hello? While Peter Thiel has long marketed himself as a libertarian, his track record from PayPal has revealed him to instead be an architect of the modern surveillance state and a successor to the neoconservative cabal that once tried but failed to do the same.
I can count on one hand, like, self-labeled libertarians that are actually decent. And they're all at, like, one publication.
Yep, so, anti-war.
Right.
All right.
Like, sorry, libertarians. But
well, Patrick McFarland's all right. He's pretty connected to them too, I think. He's all right. There's a few more. But yes, I agree. During PayPal's earliest days, Thiel and his colleagues went around to various government agencies, including intel agencies, to see how they could best tailor their product to win government support and contracts for their products and services. After leaving PayPal, Thiel would follow a similar path in creating another company, Palantir. Palantir is the engine on which the surveillance state runs, and soon after Vance was announced as Trump's vice president, it was reported that Palantir co-founder Joe Lonsdale, as well as Palantir itself, were backing a Trump-Vance super PAC called America PAC. Yep. Okay, that's a problem. A private company that contracts directly with the federal government, military, and intelligence agencies, backing a presidential candidate with a multi-million-dollar PAC. No problem?
Yep. Nope. It's perfectly fine.
Unlimited Hangout has reported extensively on Thiel and Palantir for several years. As noted in past reports, the company was created to be the privatized version of a post-9/11 surveillance program that had been dreamt up by the Iran-Contra criminals most responsible for the unconstitutional main core database. They talked about this on Jimmy Dore yesterday. During the Reagan administration, the individuals at the heart of the Iran-Contra scandal, I believe it was John Poindexter, developed a database called Main Core, which firmly placed the U.S. national security state on its current tech-fueled path for crushing dissent. A senior government official with high-ranking security clearance and service in 5 presidential administrations told Radar in 2008 that Main Core was a database of Americans who, often for the slightest and most trivial reason, are considered unfriendly and who, in a time of panic, might be incarcerated. The database can identify and locate perceived enemies of the state almost instantaneously. Nothing to see here. Main Core was expressly developed for use in continuity of government protocols by the key Iran-Contra figure, Oliver North. We remember him and his allies that operated on an off-the-books intelligence apparatus with direct CIA involvement known as the Enterprise. I believe Poppy Bush might have also been involved in that, but allegedly.
Engage.
Not that Enterprise.
Bro, it's the Enterprise. It could only be that Enterprise. It's clearly Patrick Stewart is involved.
Ollie and his definitely no, it's military. It's U.S. military, so definitely not Patrick Stewart. He's British.
Bro, the Enterprise had like proton torpedoes and nonsense. Like,
yes, but they were also a one world government type of organization. Yeah. But anyway, Oliver North and his associates,
also a U.S. aircraft carrier. But continue.
North and his associates used that continuity of government in Main Core to compile a list of U.S. dissidents and potential troublemakers to be dealt with if the continuity of government protocol was ever invoked. Huh. Why would Oliver North ever be looking into the invocation of continuity of government with Ronald Reagan as president, a senile, demented old man at the time? Huh. And they're doing they're doing arms for hostages with Iran and Nicaragua and getting involved in, I don't know. Troublingly.
We don't capitulate with terrorists, Indy, clearly.
Right. Troublingly, these protocols could be invoked for a variety of reasons, including widespread panic, non-violent opposition to U.S. military intervention abroad, that would be us, widespread internal dissent, or a vaguely defined moment of national crisis or time of panic, something like COVID or 9/11 or January 6th, for example. Well, maybe not, but maybe. North would later brush up against the Trump administration, joining former Blackwater founder Eric Prince in an effort to lobby the administration to create an off-the-books private CIA. And now Eric Prince is trying to lobby to be the head of the Secret Service or the head of the military or the head of the CIA or something under Trump, potentially. That's a little frightening. He's about as scary as it gets. That's Betsy DeVos's brother, by the way.
Oh, okay. Fun.
Main Core.
Big club and all that.
Oh, yes. Very big. Main Core utilized the Promise software, which was stolen from its owners at Inslaw Inc., by top Reagan and U.S. intelligence officials, as well as Israeli spy master Rafi Eitan. Also intimately involved in the Promise scandal, also intimately involved, was media baron and Israel's super spy, Robert Maxwell. You've heard of him.
Sorry.
No, not that guy. The father of Ghislaine, and reportedly the man who brought Jeffrey Epstein to the Israeli intelligence orbit. Like Promise, Main Core involved both U.S. and Israeli intelligence.
There's never been, Indy, you would have to have something like photo evidence of like someone like Trump or Elon Musk or, meeting with Epstein in some way. Kamala Harris and Ghislaine and that doesn't exist, right? That couldn't possibly be a thing.
No.
Clintons.
Yep. Like Promise,
paintings of blue dresses. Anyway, continue.
Right. Main Core involved both U.S. and Israeli intelligence and was a big data approach to the surveillance of perceived domestic dissidents. Now, it's really funny because I remember I've been listening to Whitney Webb now for about 4 years that I can remember. And and I can remember very clearly in November of 2020, she talked about that the intelligence state was looking to potentially apply everything that they had learned overseas and turn a domestic operation either on the Biden administration starting, and she predicted something was going to happen on, when it came to certifying the vote, and that they were going to have some kind of a something, and look what ended up happening, and then that they would use that as an excuse to ramp up the surveillance and security state. Huh. Did that happen?
I saw a quote today that was like, fascism is when a colonialist power does colonialist power things to itself, as opposed to everywhere else.
No.
So, like, it sounds about right. I forget who made the quote. Someone will tell me. Sure.
The Iran-Contra and Promis scandals were exposed, but were subsequently covered up. Why? Largely by the then U.S. Attorney General William Barr, we've heard of him, who would return to serve in that same position during the Trump administration. That was during the Bush administration, the first one. The use of Main Core by the federal government persisted and continued to amass data. That data could not be fully tapped into and utilized by the intel community until after the events of September 11, 2001, which offered a golden opportunity for the use of such tools against the domestic U.S. population, all under the guise of combating terrorism. For example,
11.
Very much so. For example, in the immediate aftermath of 9/11, government officials reportedly saw Main Core being accessed by White House computers. Huh? September 11th was also used as an excuse to remove information firewalls within the national security state, expanding information sharing amongst agency databases, and by extension, also expanding the amount of data that could be accessed and analyzed by Main Core and its analogs. Huh, how about that? As Alan Wade, then serving as CIA's chief information officer, pointed out soon after 9/11, quote, one of the post-September 11th themes is collaboration and information sharing. We're looking at tools that facilitate communication in ways that we don't have today.
9/11 was bad.
Yes. Yes, it was. Just ask this.
I feel like... Go ahead.
Ask the Israelis, I would say. Yes.
I was going to say, I feel like I smell CrowdStrike coming up in this story, but,
There very well might be, but I think that was another article. In an attempt to build...
it's very similar to all this, right?
Sort of. In an attempt to build...
Everything's connected.
On these two post-9/11 objectives simultaneously, the U.S. national security state attempted to create a public-private surveillance program, where have we heard those words before, so invasive that Congress defunded it just months after its creation due to concerns that it would completely eliminate the right to privacy in the U.S. No big deal. Called Total Information Awareness, and again, Whitney talked about this with Jimmy Dore yesterday, TIA, the program sought to develop an all-seeing surveillance apparatus managed by DARPA. TIA's supporters argued that invasive surveillance of the entire U.S. population was necessary to prevent terrorist attacks, bioterrorism attacks, and even naturally occurring disease outbreaks such as pandemics, before they could take place. I think
the same organization that makes the robots and the drone swarms, and
I was going to say that that's like the Morgan Freeman in Batman, in the basement of the Batman movie, where he's literally got access to the map and grid of the entire city and who and where every single person is.
I never want to see this again.
Yes, and he's like, this is too much.
Never let me look at this again.
This is too much power for anyone. So
Morgan Freeman,
our friend. Andy Dufresne. That's right.
Andy Dufresne.
Andy Dufresne. We have to have some fun because this is just the most freaking dystopian shit you can imagine. All right. Of course, TIA supporters, like we said, pandemics. We have to be able to prevent pandemics before they can take place. Pre-crime. The architect of TIA and the man who led it during its relatively brief existence, again, was John Poindexter. Remember, I mentioned that name before. Best known for being Reagan's...
Poindexter.
He was Poindexter was national
with the fucking pocket protector and shit and the suspenders.
Yes.
Bow tie.
Yes. National security advisor during Iran-Contra and being convicted of 5 felonies in relation to that scandal. He also fell on the sword pretty hard, but he was one of the architects. Poindexter, during the Iran-Contra hearings, had famously claimed that it was his duty to withhold information from Congress.
Did I do that?
They were but I mean, they're charged with oversight, and it was his duty to withhold. That's what he saw it as. In regard to total information awareness, one of Poindexter's key allies was Chief Information Officer of the CIA, Alan Wade. Wade met with Poindexter in relation to TIA numerous times and managed the participation of not just the CIA, but all U.S. intelligence agencies that had signed on to add their data as nodes to TIA and, in exchange, gained access to its tools. So you give us your data and we'll let you access all this shit. Wade, while at CIA, had previously partnered with Robert Maxwell's daughter, Christine.
Wait. I just fucking noticed the fucking logo. Is literally the fucking
Illuminati
like, all-seeing eye.
Yes.
Jesus Christ. What what?
But worse.
Jesus Christ. Okay, continue. Yep. What the fuck?
Oh, it gets worse. It only gets worse.
I'm sure it does.
Wade partnered with Robert Maxwell's daughter, Christine, on national security software called Chiliad. I swear to God, Chiliad, which had similarities to TIA as well as Palantir, but fell short of the proposed program's scope and ambition. Christine had previously been involved in her father's efforts to market bugged Promise software to U.S. national laboratories. I don't know how she got that, but there's an article from archive.org. Oh, that's from One Nation Under Blackmail. That's a citation from her book. That's, again, Whitney Webb, Unlimited Hangout, for those who don't know and who came in late. This is an article all about JD Vance and his connections to Peter Thiel and why that's bad, and how it's badly going to influence the Trump administration's policies on surveillance and on military and on purchases and on where they're going to spend the money. The TIA program, despite the best efforts of Poindexter and his allies, such as Wade, was eventually forced to shut down after considerable criticism and public outrage. However, though the program was defunded, it later emerged the TIA was never actually shut down, with its various programs having been covertly divided among the web of military and intelligence agencies that make up the U.S. national security state. While some of those TIA programs went underground, the core panopticon software that TIA had hoped to wield began to be developed by the company now known as Palantir, with considerable help from the CIA and Alan Wade, their CIO, as well as John Poindexter. This is a real dangerous witch's brew. And as Sarah says...
especially when it's called the Panopticon.
And Palantir.
Like, that sounds like a Thunderdome. Like, you can't,
Anna Mayers, Poindexter is a goddamn verb. No real humans are allowed to have a name that's morphed into a verb. Right?
Yeah, I know, dude. You can't. That's
no,
change your name, bro.
We do not need a Chili's baby back ribs sound drop for that. Sorry, Jamie. No.
I was gonna mention you were talking about Chiliad or whatever.
Yes,
and I think my gamer friends in the chat.
Is that the Iliad?
Tell you, I think that's the mountain in GTA 5 where there's a whole like cult, like alien UFO cult mission on it.
No,
it's like literally the Chiliad cult alien Area 51 nonsense. I don't know if that's pre-crime going on there, but whatever.
So, it was never shut down. All right, it developed software with help from CIA, Wade, Poindexter, Palantir, all working together. Public-private partnership controlled by Peter Thiel. Guess what? Palantir is now a publicly traded company on the stock exchange. But we'll get there.
Okay.
At the time it was formally launched in February 2003, the TIA program was immediately controversial, leading it to change its name in May, 3 months later, to Terrorism Information Awareness instead of Total Information Awareness, in an apparent attempt to sound less like an all-encompassing domestic surveillance system and more like a tool specifically aimed at terrorists. The TIA program was shuttered by the end of 2003. And you're not going to get your baby back ribs, Jamie. Sorry, not here. The same month as the...
if in this article, you don't want baby back ribs in this article.
No, definitely not.
Some things in there you don't want.
The same month,
it might include ingredients such as Robert Rothschild's Moroccan carrot spread.
Bro, you still have that shit?
Of course, I still have that shit. I'm not going to throw it out.
You're going to eat the rich? Is that what it is?
No, I'm not going to eat it at all.
That should be their slogan: "Eat the rich." Right?
Oh God.
The same month as the TIA.
At the dollar store, bro. It's so funny.
Rothschilds have gone way down market.
Way down. I know.
The same month as the TIA name change, Peter Thiel incorporated Palantir. Thiel, however, had begun creating the software behind Palantir months in advance, though he claims he can't recall exactly when. Some reports state that Palantir began as an anti-fraud algorithm at Thiel's PayPal. Thiel, Karp, and other Palantir co-founders claimed for years that the company had been founded in 2004, despite the paperwork of Palantir's incorporation by Thiel directly contradicting this claim. Also in 2003, apparently soon after Thiel formally created Palantir, Iraq war architect and Bush-era neocon Richard Pearl called Poindexter, saying that he wanted to introduce the architect of TIA to two Silicon Valley entrepreneurs, Peter Thiel and Alex Karp. According to a report in New York Magazine, Poindexter was, quote, precisely the person whom Thiel and Karp wanted to meet, mainly because, quote, their new company was similar in ambition to what Poindexter had tried to create at the Pentagon, that is, TIA. During that meeting, Thiel and Karp sought to pick the brain of the man now widely viewed as the godfather of modern surveillance, shaping Palantir into a TIA equivalent.
Sure.
Man. Soon after Palantir's incorporation, though the exact timing and details of the investment remain hidden from the public, CIA's In-Q-Tel became the company's first backer, aside from Thiel himself, giving it an estimated $2 million. In-Q-Tel's stake in Palantir would not be publicly reported until mid-2006. I wonder why. Alex Karp recently told the New York Times that the real value of the In-Q-Tel investment was that it gave Palantir access to the CIA analysts who were its intended clients. A key figure in the making of In-Q-Tel investments during this period, including Palantir, was CIA's chief information officer at the time, Alan Wade. God, that name keeps coming up. After the In-Q-Tel investment, the CIA held the unique position of being Palantir's only client until 2008. During that period, Palantir's two top engineers, Aki Jain and Stephen Cohen, traveled to CIA headquarters at Langley every 2 weeks. Nothing to see here. Jain recalls making at least 200 trips to CIA headquarters between 2005 and 2009. During these regular visits, CIA analysts would test Palantir's software out and then offer feedback, and then Cohen and Jain would fly back to California to tweak it. As with In-Q-Tel's decision to invest in Palantir, the CIA's chief information officer at the time, Alan Wade, remember that name again, Alan Wade, keep saying it for a reason, played a key role in many of these meetings and subsequently in the tweaking of Palantir's products. It should come as no surprise then that there is an overlap between Palantir's products and the vision that Wade and Poindexter had held for the failed TIA program. Because he's the link. The extensive overlap between the two is detailed in previous Unlimited Hangout investigations about Palantir's Tiberius race and the public health panopticon is the article, and you see that was from February. The benefits in repurposing the public-private TIA into a completely private entity after TIA was publicly dismantled are obvious. For instance, given that Palantir is a private company as opposed to a government program, the way its software is used by its government and corporate clients benefits from plausible deniability and frees Palantir and its software from constraints that would be present if it had remained a public project. Yeah, proprietary source code and shit versus it being public and owned by everyone. Right? Here's a 2020 New York Times profile on Palantir, which noted that the data, which is stored in various cloud services or on clients' premises, is controlled by the customer, and Palantir says it does not police the use of its products. Nor are the privacy controls foolproof. It is up to the customers to decide who gets to see what and how vigilant they wish to be. How convenient. And I'll bet there's no back door for him to look at any of this stuff, right?
I mean, it definitely doesn't. They've never provided something like, I don't know, an entire cloud service through a video platform that people could put their files and data into. But,
Yeah, maybe.
Host servers on.
Well, not long after Thiel helped resurrect TIA as Palantir, another post 9/11 DARPA program was close to also seeking a private investor makeover, developed by Douglas Gage, a close friend of Poindexter's and a DARPA program manager. LifeLog sought to build a database tracking a person's entire existence that included an individual's relationships and communications, their phone calls, mail, their media consumption habits, their purchases, and much more in order to build a digital record of everything an individual says, sees, or does. LifeLog would then take this unstructured data and organize it into discrete episodes or snapshots while also mapping out relationships, memories, events, and experiences. Dude, this is so dystopian. LifeLog, per Gage and supporters of the program, would create a permanent and searchable electronic diary of a person's entire life, which DARPA argued could be used to create next-generation digital assistants and offer users a near-perfect digital memory. How great, folks! You'd never forget a thing ever again. Every time you were humiliated, you could never let that memory go. Gage insisted, even after the program was shut down, that individuals would have had complete control over their own data collection efforts, as they could decide when to turn the sensors on or off and decide who will share the data, In the years since then, analogous promises of user control have been made by the tech giants of Silicon Valley, only to be broken repeatedly for profit and to feed the government's domestic surveillance apparatus, which we all know of. All right? Yeah, it's really brutal. The information that LifeLog gleaned from an individual's every interaction with technology was to be combined with information obtained from a GPS transmitter that tracked and documented the person's location, audio-visual sensors that recorded what the person saw and said, as well as biomedical monitors that gauged the person's health. Like TIA, LifeLog was promoted by DARPA as potentially supporting medical research and the early detection of an emerging epidemic or pandemic. All of this stuff, okay, this is what Whitney gets into. It's really like the deepest of the weeds where people are trying to control thought and control behavior and figure out how do we do that? And maybe it's engineering a pandemic, allegedly safe and effective. Critics in mainstream media outlets and elsewhere were quick to point out that the program would inevitably be used to build profiles on dissidents as well as suspected terrorists. Combined with TIA's surveillance of individuals at multiple levels, LifeLog went farther by adding physical information like how we feel and media data like what we read to this transactional data. One critic.
And how does that make you feel?
How does that make you feel? Very, very invaded. That's what it makes me feel. Violated is how it makes me feel.
It probably stems from your relationship with your mother.
It might, maybe even my father. But Lee Tien of EFF warned at the time that the programs that DARPA was pursuing, including LifeLog, have obvious, easy paths to Homeland Security deployments. At the time, DARPA publicly...
That couldn't have any Jesus Christ. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
DARPA publicly insisted that LifeLog and TIA were not connected, despite their obvious parallels, and that LifeLog would not be used for clandestine surveillance. Sure.
No.
However, DARPA's own documentation on LifeLog noted that the project will be able to infer the user's routines, habits, and relationships with other people, organizations, places, and objects, and to exploit these patterns to ease its task, which acknowledged its potential to use as a tool of mass surveillance. Yep. However, again, despite its proponents' best efforts, LifeLog was shuttered just like TIA. Given what had transpired with TIA, some suspected the program would continue under a different name. For example, Lee Tien of EFF told Vice at the time of LifeLog's cancellation that it would not surprise me to learn the government continued to fund research that pushed this area forward without calling it LifeLog. Along with its critics, one of the would-be researchers working on it, MIT's David Karger, was also certain that the DARPA project would continue in a repackaged form. He told Wired that, quote, "I'm sure such research will continue to be funded under some other title. I can't imagine DARPA dropping out of such a key research area," unquote. Why is it so key? The answer to these speculations appears to lie with the company that launched the exact same day that LifeLog was shuttered by the Pentagon. The Blue Giant, Facebook. Holy shit.
Oh.
Blue Giant. A few months into Facebook's launch, in June 2004, Facebook co-founders Mark Zuckerberg and Dustin Moskovitz brought Sean Parker onto Facebook's executive team. We now know that whole story. Parker, previously known for co-founding Napster, later connected Facebook with its first outside investor, Peter Thiel. Now, I don't know how accurate the story of the social network goes, but Parker definitely got them the meeting with Peter Thiel and got them, I think it was a $50,000 investment. As discussed, Thiel at the time, in coordination with the CIA, was actively trying to resurrect at least one controversial DARPA program that had been dismantled the previous year. Notably, Sean Parker, who became Facebook's first president, had also had a history with the CIA, which sought to recruit him at the age of 16, soon after he'd been busted by the FBI for hacking corporate and military databases. Thanks to Parker, in September 2004, Thiel formally acquired $500,000 worth of Facebook shares and was added to its board. It wasn't 50,000, it was $500,000. And that's when they pushed out Eduardo Saverin, by the way. Parker maintained close ties to Facebook as well as to Thiel, with Parker being hired as managing partner of Thiel's Founders Fund in 2006. Thiel left the Facebook board, which he had joined in 2005, in 2022 to focus on supporting Trump-aligned candidates, including JD Vance. Okay, again, Peter Thiel leaves Facebook board to back candidates like Vance, who's now the VP under Trump, or at least VP nominee.
Yay. Yay.
Further incestuousness, Thiel and Facebook co-founder Dustin Moskovitz became involved outside of their social network long after Facebook's rise to prominence, with Thiel's founder fund becoming a significant investor in Moskovitz's company Asana in 2012. Thiel's long-standing symbiotic relationship with Facebook co-founders extends to his company Palantir, as the data that Facebook users make public invariably winds up in Palantir's databases and helps drive the surveillance engine that Palantir runs for U.S. police departments, the military, and the intelligence community. Thanks, folks. And we're giving this all for free. Facebook data also feeds another Thiel-backed company, Clearview AI. Notably, even LifeLog's architect, Douglas Gage, has publicly commented on Facebook's similarities to the program he had once hoped to lead. In 2015, he told Vice that Facebook is the real face of the pseudo-LifeLog at this point. He tellingly added, "We've ended up providing the same kind of detailed personal information to advertisers and data brokers, and without arousing the kind of opposition that LifeLog provoked, precisely because it is now a private company and not a project housed at DARPA."
Captain James T. Kirk, pseudo lifelog. I like it. Why do they always name this shit the worst? Like, why do they do that?
Because this is what she does.
Like, I'm sure. Like,
thank you, Sarah.
Oh.
Max Azzarello does not seem too far off now. Well, except he never references Whitney once in his entire research, in his entire volumes of everything, and that screams red flag at me.
Mm-hmm.
All right? I don't disagree with his premise. Yes, Jimmy's family was a cop. His father, his brother, his whole family was full of cops, if I remember correctly, Monarch.
Yep. Welcome to people's families. You can't choose them.
Palantir and their surveillance agenda under Trump. So, continuing Whitney Webb's article about JD Vance and why this is important. During the Trump administration, Palantir enjoyed an even more privileged status than it had under previous administrations, with Palantir gaining many new lucrative contracts, mainly with the military and intelligence, during Trump's first term. This was likely influenced by Thiel's presence on Trump's transition teams and the close role of Thiel associates in choosing key Pentagon appointees. And we covered that earlier. Not only that, but the broader agenda behind Palantir, the decades-long effort to create a pre-crime AI-powered surveillance system in the United States, also got significant boosts during Trump's first term. Remember, Trump loves funding cops.
Yep.
For instance, Trump's Attorney General William Barr quietly legalized pre-crime in the United States under the guise of detecting potential mass shooters before they commit any crime. The program,
and that's going so well. They're always on people's radars.
Absolutely.
Bro, they're always.
Especially if they're in water towers or on rooftops. The program called DEEP enables the DOJ and FBI to work with private sector partners to surveil people of interest that have committed no crime but are mobilizing towards violence. That's so dystopian again. At roughly the same time the program was announced, Barr was also pushing heavily for a government backdoor into consumer apps and devices, particularly those that utilize encryption. He also signed a data access agreement with UK then Home Secretary Priti Patel. She can fuck off too. That allowed both countries to demand electronic data on consumers from tech companies based in the other country without legal restrictions. Fascism was long since here, folks. Also during the Trump administration, an Israeli intelligence-linked company called Carbine 911 began to be installed throughout the United States in emergency call centers and has since spread throughout the nation. Carbine 911 was heavily funded by Peter Thiel's Founders Fund. Remember that Sean Parker was the first president of Founders Fund, and Trey Stevens sits on the advisory board alongside Michael Chertoff, who was the head of Homeland Security under George W. Bush, Kirsten Nelson, who was the head of DHS under Trump. Carbine was also heavily funded by Jeffrey Epstein and Leslie Wexner, and for much of its early history was closely associated with former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak, himself an intimate associate of Epstein, to put it lightly.
Yay.
The incestuous just doesn't stop. I mean, it's crazy. Carbine 911 and similar companies extract any and all data from consumer smartphones for merely making emergency calls and then use it to analyze the past and present behavior of their callers, react accordingly, and in time predict future patterns, with the ultimate goal of smart devices such as smart street lamps making emergency calls to the authorities as opposed to human beings, because they get so good at detecting crime or knowing when crime is about to happen.
Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to calm down before we have to arrest you.
Oh, my God. Data obtained from these software products, which are slated to be adopted nationwide as part of a new national next-generation 911 system, are, of course, shared with the same law enforcement agencies now implementing the bar-designed National Disruption and Early Engagement Program to target individuals flagged as potentially violent based on vague criteria. Like, for example, if you indicate that you have an affinity for guillotines, maybe.
Inflatable ones. Inflatable.
In video games. Combined with
inflatable ones.
That's right. Combined with
balloons.
With the domestic terror framework released during the Biden administration and the definition of domestic terrorists now encompassing those who oppose U.S. government overreach and those who oppose any form of capitalism, like the Atlanta Forest Defenders, also including the World Economic Forum favored stakeholder capitalism and or corporate globalization. Nothing to worry about here, folks.
Only approved protesting is allowed.
The Trump administration, during the same period, also mulled the creation of a new health-focused agency modeled after DARPA, the proposed HARPA, which was promoted extensively to Trump by his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, and his daughter, Ivanka, as well as Trump's close friend and former NBC Universal president, Bob Wright. I think he died recently. No, that was Bob Welch, or Jack Welch, not Bob Wright. Bob Wright's still alive. HARPA's proposed flagship program, Safe Home, which is stopping aberrant fatal events by helping overcome mental extremes, would use breakthrough technologies with specificity and sensitivity for early diagnosis of neuropsychiatric violence. Will they be testing Trump on this shit? Specifically, advanced analytical tools based on artificial intelligence and machine learning, because we know that they're so good at this stuff. Oh my God. The program would have cost an estimated $60 million over 4 years and would use data from Americans' social media accounts as well as Apple Watches, which I have on my wrist right now, Fitbits, Amazon Echoes, and Google Homes, which I will not allow in my house, by the way. Silly, but I won't allow those stupid devices. and also other consumer electronic devices. Of course, my phone is also listening all the time, but that's just silly.
Yep.
The program would also collect information provided by healthcare providers to identify who may be a threat. Wait, what? How could somebody potentially be a threat? Well, that would be the COVID angle, I'm guessing. Though HARPA was not created under the Trump administration, Trump reportedly reacted very positively to the proposal and was sold on the concept. Well, he gets sold on a lot of stuff, and then he gets unsold on a lot of stuff, too. I don't know what that really is significant, but if Whitney's saying so, it means something. In addition, before the proposal was known widely, Trump had called on big tech and specifically social media to collaborate with the Justice Department to create software that stops mass murders before they happen by detecting potential mass shooters before they can act. I don't know how they plan to do that, other than telling the FBI not to stoke their violent criminals. But, however, allegedly, Trump ultimately passed on creating HARPA, which was ultimately created during the Biden administration as ARPA-H, underscoring the bipartisan nature of this agenda. Because you know what the word bipartisan means, right?
Yep.
It is
I think Carlin had some words about that.
Yes, I believe that he did. All right, so we're getting through. Are Peter Thiel-backed intelligence contractors MAGA? That's weird. Despite many Thiel-backed or Thiel-founded companies describing themselves as America First and defenders of Western values, a closer examination of these companies suggests this is not the case. One lesser-known example is Palantir's early role in developing a way for the U.S. government to target Julian Assange, leak space journalism in the public interest, and what it called the WikiLeaks threat. In looking at other Thiel-linked firms, it's quite clear that at least some are more than willing to target Americans on either side of the political divide on behalf of their biggest client, the so-called deep state that Trump supporters revile. Take, for example, the Thiel-backed Clearview AI, which claims to now be able to identify every person in the world using its advanced facial recognition system. As Unlimited Hangout contributor Stavroula Pabst noted in a recent report, follow her on Substack, when asked in an NBC interview about Clearview AI's possible negative ramifications for society, the company's CEO, Hoan Ton That, said, that's not a thought and hot, whatever, no. Said, quote, a lot of people's minds on facial recognition technology were changed around January 6th, when the insurrection happened at the U.S. Capitol building. It was very instrumental in being able to make identifications quickly. But wait, if Peter Thiel is MAGA, and MAGA went after the Capitol, As its own CEO stated, Clearview AI was used extensively on J6 and later boasted of its potential for identifying potential rioters at the J6 attack on the Capitol, unquote. In a 2023 interview, a New York Times reporter, Kashmir Hill, added that not only was Clearview AI used at the Capitol that day, but also in the days and weeks that followed to identify alleged rioters.
No.
After the events of J6, Clearview AI reported a 26% uptake of its services from law enforcement, having used its role in targeting Trump supporters as a sales pitch. How long is this? 2.5 minutes.
May 2019, Las Vegas, Nevada. A web services provider alerted authorities after a user received images depicting the sexual abuse of a young girl. The only clue was an adult face visible in one image.
I'm not going to show this because I don't know if I can actually show this. And we're in trouble right now. Clearview AI is not the only Thiel-linked company willing to target Trump space, as Palantir's co-founder and current CEO Alex Karp is obsessed with his longtime fear that the far right is going to murder him for his ethnic background. That fear, per Karp, propels a lot of the decisions made at Palantir. I still can't believe I haven't been shot and pushed out the window, he told the New York Times in 2020. The author added that if the far right came to power, Karp said he would certainly be among its victims. Who's the first person that's going to get hung? You make a list and I'll show you who they get first. It's me. There's not a box I don't check. He's super paranoid. Then in 2023, Karp stated during an interview at the World Economic Forum annual meeting that we built PG, or proprietary software, which single-handedly stopped the rise of the far right in Europe. Given that the labels of far right as well as far left are often misused to describe those on either side of the political spectrum that do not subscribe to or support official narratives, it's worth asking if far right Karp claims to have stopped referred to people who actually deserve the label, or right-leaning populism, given populism of any flavor is a threat to Palantir's benefactors in the corporate world and in the U.S. national security community. Just expand what's a threat. Everybody's a threat. That's Alex Karp at 2016 Bilderberg, apparently. In addition, Trump supporters that did not subscribe to official narratives around
and who's
COVID.
that behind him?
Who was that behind him?
Chives, the butler.
Of course.
Get us Downton Abbey.
Of course, sir.
Like, what the fuck? Excuse me, sir. You've dropped your dignity.
In addition, Trump supporters that did not subscribe to official narratives around COVID policies should be aware of Palantir's role in the Trump administration's COVID response and also in the COVID vaccination rollout. During COVID, Palantir developed Tiberius, which was used by Health and Human Services to help the federal government allocate the amount of vaccine each state would receive, and also to decide where every allocated dose would go, from local doctors' offices to large medical centers. Why? Tiberius, and by extension Palantir, collected all the COVID-19 and healthcare data from U.S. government agencies, local and state governments, pharmaceutical firms, vaccine manufacturers, and companies contracted to act as vaccine distributors. They then sat at the middle of all of this. Palantir was also provided Americans sensitive health information by the Trump-era HHS, as well as a wide range of demographic, employment, and public health data sets in order to help identify high-priority populations to receive the vaccine first. This couldn't have had anything to do with voting and where to restrict certain things or nothing. No way. Just totally do with health. But remember, during COVID, Palantir was also a member of the COVID-19 Health Coalition, whose other members included In-Q-Tel, which was Palantir's first funder, as well as Amazon, Microsoft, and Google, companies that all managed to somehow stay open. How about that?
Yep.
Palantir also managed the HHS Protect database, a secretive database that hoarded and still hoards information related to the spread of COVID-19, gathered from, quote, more than 225 data sets, including demographic statistics, community-based tests, and a wide range of state-provided data. At the time, HHS Protect was criticized by several public health experts and epidemiologists, among others, because of the sudden decision by the Trump-era HHS to force hospitals to provide all data on COVID cases and patient information directly to HHS Protect, and thus to Palantir. Doesn't that violate HIPAA? Hospitals were threatened with the loss of Medicare or Medicaid funding if they declined to regularly feed all of their COVID-19 patient data and test results into the HHS Protect database. I wonder if Pfizer was paying to be involved in that database. What do you think? Palantir declined to provide any information on any of the safeguards it had in place to protect Americans' health data in any of its HHS-related programs, despite requests to do so from senators and congresspeople. That's a problem, but they're above the law. They are above the law. HHS Protect also later incorporated HHS Vision, which is an AI-driven predictive component. You know these assholes love their predictive analysis, which uses pre-written algorithms to simulate behaviors and forecast possible outcomes. Like tabletop exercises that could potentially game out whether a laptop was real or not, or how companies would react to it. But this is applied to a health scenario. Aspects of HHS Protect share remarkable similarities with the scrapped Total Information Awareness subprogram known as biosurveillance. So basically, what would happen in a pandemic, but this is given the data that's on everybody's person with their devices and even their clothing, you would be able to assess everything about them, what they're saying, and what their intentions are, and what their plans might be. It's really fucked up. Night, Sarah. I know this is a long one. Not only that, but a longtime consultant of Palantir, Avril Haines, and we know her very well, was a key fixture at the controversial pandemic simulation in late 2019 that was tied to previous intelligence-linked biosecurity events like the 2001 anthrax attacks. Now, Avril Haines, who is she? She's a former CIA deputy director who worked very closely with her superior, John Brennan, at CIA, including during the times that Brennan illegally surveilled Trump associates during the 2016 election cycle, and then helped propagate and develop the Russiagate narrative, which Haines is now conveniently resurrecting. Haines, shortly after participating in Event 201, joined the Biden administration and has been serving as the administration's top intelligence official, the DNI, since Biden took office in January 2021. So Palantir has literally had somebody sitting right there next to the president the entire time. Palantir is also controversial among the American left for its role in using big data to facilitate ICE raids on migrants and its decision to pilot its predictive policing, i.e. pre-crime functionality, in low-income minority communities. My guess is they're going to start using drones for that sooner rather than later, both the dog ones and flying ones. Ultimately, Palantir, like many other military intelligence contractors with close ties to Peter Thiel, is a tool of the national security state, which has been ramping up its war on domestic terror apparatus that, per government documentation and per Whitney's been warning us for 4 years, will target dissent on both left and right, and essentially anyone who attempts to stand or even speak against government overreach and criminality. This scares the shit out of me here as an independent, dissident, whatever we are here, podcaster, reporter, journalist, anything. This is us. With Thiel, Palantir, and Joe Lonsdale now pumping millions into the Trump-Vance campaign after the recent VP announcement, it seems almost inevitable that Palantir and the other Thiel-linked military contractors will have even more influence in a second Trump administration than it did during his first term. On top of setting it up that if Vance is going to be the successor, possibly, then you've got Thiel with direct links to the President of the United States. I know, Reese exhausted. I don't even know if he's going to want to do boats after this.
No, we'll get through that. We've got an intermission.
All right, well, we'll have an intermission, but before that, if you appreciate...
exhausting. It's just like, Whitney, you put so much in here, Whitney. How does anyone digest all of it?
Well,
like,
Rain Man here has...
Oh, my brain is...
Most people's brains are hurting, I get. So before we get to brain bleach with Reef and Boats, first of all, amazingly, these wonderful folks have hooked us up and tipped our channel. Yes, we are going to get to boats, but so
Yep. Well, if you can support us, we really could use the help. Support independent media. We need it more than ever. We work on a value for value system, as Steve Poikinen at AM Wake Up likes to say, and we like to clown him about it, but it's actually...
I'm once again asking for your financial support.
But it's actually a great system. It was developed by Adam Curry and John Dvorak of the No Agenda Radio and No Agenda podcast. And it really means that if you are getting value, whether you can donate time, treasure, or talent, right? I got to do it in Steve's voice and give him the credit because he came up with it. All right. But any one of those three, we can certainly use all of them because I am the media now. Let me tell you a story very quickly before we get to quick hits. Was that when this whole news broke today about Biden not seeking the presidency going forward, I went upstairs to my wife to tell her, and she hadn't gotten an alert or anything on her phone yet. And she didn't really quite believe me when I first told her. I'm like, oh, he's done. It's over. The letter's out. What do you mean? She's like, wait, I didn't see anything I didn't get it. Wait, huh? And she then took like 3-4 minutes to finally search Instagram, and she ended up having to go to his official account to find it. I'm like, look at me. I am the media now. I am the media now. I just thought that was...
that guy's not a good guy in that story.
Yeah, I know.
Right?
But the point is that we are... Yes, I like to do that. But we're taking over was the point. But let's get to let's get to our quick hits real quick.
Who are these people?
Yes, Natalie Williams, you did hear that Trump might actually appoint Jamie Dimon to be treasurer of the Fed. Treasurer secretary, not Fed. Unless that might have been, I thought it was Larry Fink.
Pete Buttigieg as transportation again?
Maybe.
One can only hope.
All right. We talked about David McBride a few weeks ago and how he was convicted and sent to jail for 5.5 years for whistleblowing on war crimes in Afghanistan and Australian soldiers, SAS soldiers, war crimes in Afghanistan. He was a lawyer. We got an update from his team that he's been in jail for 64 days, but due to immediate concerns for his safety, we can't say more except to say that his situation is grim. No access to natural light and restricted contact with his daughters. I don't know why. Help free David McBride by donating to his fundraiser. And there's a link there. And again, we'll have a link to this tweet after the show's over. Probably in the morning. And
Tim Tams.
Misty also did a vigil last night on her Action for Assange and her bitch channel to talk about this as well with Sleepy Josh. So that's one quick hit. Then, of course, friend of the show, Fiorella. For those who don't know, Fiorella's YouTube channel, her new YouTube channel that I actually helped develop the trailer for, was taken down unceremoniously by YouTube. And even after appealing, she has said that they are not going to reinstate her channel. We won't be putting it back up on YouTube. Fuck you. Like, what? I won't stop trying to expose them, and I won't just leave. But this won't stop anytime soon. I know I'm not alone, but this is reminiscent of a fascist downfall. Don't accept it. And follow Fee on Rumble.
Please, Fee. Come on.
And on Telegram. Yeah. Wait, where's... What? That's it. I don't know. I had another one.
Fee.
That's it. Fee. Anyway, so there's the Rumble channel. And then also, but there's more. Beyond Headlines was a new outlet that was just recently started. They created a YouTube channel, and they also had their channel removed. Well, Fiorella's name is was nowhere affiliated with it, nor was her email account. Yet they pulled this down. She's of the belief that they may even be looking and monitoring her face, which I don't know. Maybe looking for her.
Which that would mean
everybody.
Every person who's ever had her on could be at risk.
Right.
So pretty fucked up.
Yes, I'm guessing that Tina, she did hurt their fifis. And then You know, we talked about this a little bit, but we got a copyright takedown request from Al Jazeera. A week and a half ago, the last INN News that Reef and Colin did, they did a story where they were comparing the children's hospital bombing in Kiev to one in Gaza. And they used this Al Jazeera footage, which was 3 minutes of a 3.5 hour stream, by the way. A 3 hour and 15 minutes. I only used
a minute and 20.
Right, a minute 20, not even 3 minutes. All right. And they not only put in a takedown request on our live stream, but then Reef had done the editing and had made a clip. He edited and uploaded the clip to our studio, but never published it. It was still sitting there as a draft. Well, some AI alerted.
Now, if you look at that picture, that's cell phone footage from a Palestinian who runs up to the bombing, and I have to stop after the first blurred body because I obviously can't pay that plus YouTube. So,
right.
I don't know if Al Jazeera actually owns the rights to that, but sure.
The point being,
you know, you put your logo on it.
They put in these 2 takedown requests, and we are now at risk until they remove them. If we get a third copyright strike or somebody requests a takedown request, we could lose the channel. And that's scary. So we've reached out via email. Somebody also reached out to us on Twitter after we publicly put this out yesterday, asking for Al Jazeera's support. I also tagged, there's the video itself so you could watch it, that it was fair use, but also that, you know, of course, they put in the porn bot, the reply bot, porn deboosting bots. AJ English and AJE News could also be potentially the people that did this to us. We don't know. Yeah. But Sabs said that they've been doing this recently, but it should be fair use. Friend of the show, Zavi Benjamin, go follow him over on Substack. He also had this happen to him. So wanted to make people aware that Al Jazeera is doing this, and it's kind of messed up.
Which, as well as if this is happening, if you've ever used Al Jazeera footage before, which we have, you know, things like the ICJ ruling and, you know, like the only place to get some of that stuff was Al Jazeera. So, you know, not being able to use their content means it's very difficult for us to cover what's happening in Palestine effectively.
Right.
Like, it's a lot harder.
Not
that it's not possible, but...
Shout out to Care Bear. Bad Cookie says, this article from Whitney made me think of Jesse Jett's Dust of Better Days lyrics. SWAT team took my neighbor today. Say that extremists come in all different sizes and shapes. Yeah. And shame on Al Jazeera for not getting back to us. Yeah, it's frustrating. You know, they have like 90 days to respond, and I don't know if they're ever going to. We'll see. You know, it'll come off in 90 days, but we just have to be good little boys and girls in the meantime.
Which is not easy. Like it's almost required to at least have one padding.
You know,
because you never know what's going to get copyrighted these days. So,
you know, I'm sure our friend the Dissident, who wrote 2 articles this past week, his second one was about JD Vance and asking, is he America first or Israel first? And looking at his Israel history and policies. And it's a good one to look at. I'm not going to go through that tonight because we did the Whitney one. But if you want to learn more about JD Vance and his Israel policy, take a look at the Dissident, the 307.substack.com. Also, again, I didn't want to, I'll probably do a whole thing on this next week, but this was happening in real time yesterday morning. The ICJ declaring in the fullest way ever that the destruction of the Palestinian properties, attacks on Palestinians by settlers, and settlements made on occupied territories violates Geneva Conventions and other historic law. Like, that's massive. Now, are there going to be any repercussions?
Jerusalem, no.
Is it non-binding? It does. It means The Hague has ordered Tel Aviv to end their illegal occupation immediately, to evacuate all settlers immediately, to immediately begin to pay reparations to all damaged parties, and no UN member nor the UN itself may recognize as legal any territory other gained by Tel Aviv. So the Golan Heights, for example, has to be returned to Syria. I want to do a real extensive. I want to read from what the experts have to say about all this.
I would like to know how they are going to force Israel to do all these things.
Well, they aren't going to be able to unless it effectively collapses the entire ICJ and United Nations, which they may rebuild on bricks for all we know, without us. Anyway, also, according to the ICJ, the American embassy in Jerusalem is built illegally on Palestinian land. Today's ICJ opinion confirms that Jerusalem is 100% Palestinian land. Jerusalem has always been the heart of Palestine and will always be part of Palestine. That was Suleiman's post about that. And I did mention the Bernie thing real quick because I thought it was important. He put out this report, and we know Bernie's full of shit, and he's a gaslighting scumbag who's turned his back on all of us on the left. And he usually comes in to save the bosses when it comes to a labor action. However, he did something okay here, and I have to say that he did. He put out a report about Prime Day workers and going after Jeff Bezos and Amazon, and how Amazon continues to treat its workers as disposable. Incredibly dangerous conditions at Amazon. They're talking 50% or more than 45% injuries on Prime Day alone. Almost half of the entire workforce is getting injured on one day in 2019. What? Wow. So definitely check that out. That was in Common Dreams. I didn't want to spend a lot of time on it, but I did want to mention it because we're running real long. And I know I knew this was going to be a long one tonight with Whitney, but this was really important. This JD Vance thing and looking into the history of Peter Thiel, Palantir, Clearview, DARPA, HARPA, how it all connects and how it's going to connect to a potential Trump administration. Knowing is half the battle, folks. And we can start to educate the people around us that are going to be stupid about it because they're going to be brainwashed and lied to, and they're going to swallow those lies whole. And there aren't many people that can actually correct them with facts and truth and know what the hell's going on. And thank you for joining us here because you're going to be among them. And it just means that you're smarter than everybody else, really, just like Whitney. That's because we read Indie Media Award honorees here. And, check it out, indiemediaawards.substack.com. You can find all 70 honorees, outlets, streamers, journalists, video editors, and creators. They're all there. Support independent media because we need it more than ever. I'm going to go take a little bong hit, and then we're going to come back and do some boats. So stick around, but it'll be a different URL. You'll be directed to it on YouTube. Reef will drop all the links in chat. There'll be a new Rockfin. There'll be a new Rumble. And I don't know why we didn't go to Rumble tonight, but we will get that up there. But thank you, everyone. Yeah. I know thanks for sticking around and appreciate all the love and donos and everything. Really, you guys are the best. Again, support independent media. We need it more than ever. Good night, folks.
Keep listening to what boats have to tell you. Good night, fam.
Mwah. Ciao, baby.
No! We just fucking lost the stream!
I think I liked it better being blind, when I couldn't read between the lines, and when I couldn't see the cracks in the structure that lay bare before me the whole time. I think I liked it better back when I suspended disbelief and swallowed pride. I thought I knew the difference in the red from the blue, but they both bleed us so dry. They both bleed us so dry. My favorite songs don't hit the same way. I get to the end of a 4-minute track and I'm only looking back thinking, what did they actually say?